Yeah, he's ready. Yep.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Clay County Commission to order. We will begin today's proceedings with an invocation. Mr. Administrator, when you are prepared, please proceed.
Pray with me. Father, we ask your blessing on and your presence in this gathering day. We are grateful for the freedoms to gather in this manner and debate and discuss. We ask for tolerance. We ask for empathy. We ask for consideration as we go through this meeting. We ask this all in Jesus' blessed name. Amen.
Please rise for the pledge. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Nolte?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Here.
We will now go for the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion related to approval for today's agenda as published?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Motion's been made for the approval of the agenda. Are there any discussion, any additions, deletions, or any other alterations to our agenda? Commissioner Carpenter?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Thompson, you are free to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Very well. That brings us to meeting schedule. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, there will be a separately noticed commission executive session that will take place on Wednesday, June the 23rd at 2 p.m. And as it states on the agenda, there will also be a commission business session this coming Wednesday, June the 23rd, beginning at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Honorary resolutions, there are none listed today. There are no discussion items on today's agenda. Public hearings, there are none. There's no consent agenda for us to take up. That brings us to regular agenda. We have one item. Before I go to the administrator to introduce that item, I just want to indicate that we will be, for those who will be coming forward to give testimony and express their opinions, we will be swearing witnesses in as they come up to testify. So I want to make sure everybody was aware of that. The clerk will administer the oath and then we will proceed from there. With that, Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, the only item on today's agenda, regular agenda, is Resolution 2021-142 to discuss and consider the manner of a conditional use permit for an exotic, dangerous, wild animal facility. Again, a consideration for a conditional use permit. And Planning and Zoning is here, and I will defer to them for further comment.
Mr. Jones, please proceed. And by the way, as Mr. Jones makes his way to the microphone, I would like to remind anyone who would care to come forward and give testimony to please make sure that the green light is illuminated on your microphones, that you identify yourself, and that you speak clearly into the microphone so that the recordings might catch all of your comments. With that, please go ahead.
In this matter in which you are about to testify, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God? I do. In your name? Michael Kip Jones.
This is Kip Jones, Planning and Zoning Manager. This is a request for a renewal for a conditional use permit. I've got the property pulled up on the screen. It's outlined in the yellow. It is approximately 3.03 acres. This is Northeastern Avenue to the west, 132nd Street to the north, and this is Kansas City city limits kind of to the southwest. It is within a mile of the city limits of Kansas City. It is located in a subdivision called Cary Hills North. And as I stated, it's approximately 3.03 acres. This is a renewal of a conditional use permit for an exotic, dangerous wild animal facility. The initial conditional use permit was approved September 21st, 2015, with 15 conditions attached to that approval, and it was granted for a 5-year time period initially. The applicant at that time appealed those conditions to the circuit court. This case was in the court for roughly 4 years, at which time the court basically came out and said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but they came out and said that the choices were the county could submit findings of facts, or since the 5-year initial approval was up, that we could drop those conditions and we could basically start over. And that's what was decided, that we would just start over with this case, and that's why we have this renewal for conditional use in front of the county commission today. It's located in the urban services tier and that 1 mile tier with the city of Kansas City. We have not received any comments from the city of Kansas City during this process. I zoomed in on the parcel here a little bit. It's at the end of a cul-de-sac, and it is the parcel right here, as I stated, a little larger than 3 acres. I'm going to put the staff report on the screen now, and I'm going to go over a few things on the staff report, but by no means am I covering everything that's in the report. With this being in the urban services tier, we look at the Clay County Land Development Code. It states in section 151-6.1 in the use table that a conditional use permit is required for an exotic, dangerous wild animal facility in R1 zoning, and this subject parcel is zoned R1. So it requires a conditional use permit. And then I have the 6 conditions that every conditional use permit must meet, are A through F here on the screen, and I'll go over those in a little more detail here a little bit later in the staff report. There is also a specific section for exotic, dangerous wild animals that I'm displaying on the screen. It gives us an idea of what is considered an exotic, dangerous wild animal, and then it also has some exemptions to requiring of the conditional use permit. The applicant did apply for a written interpretation in December of 2020 to see if she met 2 of the exemptions. The first exemption, whether she met being accredited by the American Zoo and Aquarium Association, or whether she could be considered a scientific and/or educational institute or research laboratory. If those exemptions were met, the conditional use permit would not be required. So the planning and zoning manager reviewed that written interpretation, determined that those exemptions, this case did not meet those exemptions, and submitted those findings, and that report or written interpretation is included as part of this staff report. This is a bit of a unique case, so we always include some outside agencies. This one's a little bit unique because it doesn't involve the highway department so much or the health department, because we're not talking about a whole lot of traffic generation, or we're not talking about creating additional lots or adding on to the facility or doing anything with the septic system. But one item that I would note is we did reach out to the USDA. So the applicant is licensed by the USDA and is inspected by the USDA as well. We talked to an animal care inspector who's familiar with the applicant and her facility, and she stated that Ms. Casperman is in good standing with the USDA, and that this facility did pass its last inspection on December 31st of 2020. That USDA license and inspection have been included as part of this report as well. The applicant has submitted a business plan and a couple tables that detail the total number of animals that are currently on site. We believe that Ms. Casperman has 63 animals. Of those 63, staff considers 18 of these animals to be domestic animals and 45 to be considered exotic, dangerous, wild. And we included these are some of the larger animals. We included some pictures of the larger cats. The cats can be anywhere from the size of a house cat to up to 40 pounds. So we just included some information on some of the bigger animals. I'll show some of the smaller animals here in a few minutes. Ms. Casperman states that she has lock gates and security cameras located throughout the property, and she's using an outside security company for monitoring. These cameras also make sure that the animals are healthy, and the facility is surrounded by a 6-foot tall fence with an inner perimeter fence that has sections that are 6 and 8 feet in height. We've received letters of support and letters of opposition, which have been added to their staff report as well. And so this case was heard at 2 Planning and Zoning Commission meetings. It was heard first at the April meeting and then also at the May meeting. So at the first April meeting, staff gave a report. We heard from the applicant, from opposition, and from proponents of this case. There was discussion amongst the Planning and Zoning Commission members, and they, at that case, decided to continue this case until the May Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. In between those 2 meetings, staff met with the applicant. We visited the subject parcel. We met with opposition. We answered questions from individual Planning and Zoning Commission members, and we updated the staff report, particularly the conditions. So between those 2 meetings, we basically took the conditions back to the 2015 conditions with a couple exceptions. In 2015, there was a condition requiring an 8-foot tall fence around the entire facility. We removed that condition. Our thinking there was the USDA is a better authority to decide what kind of fencing that these animals need to be surrounded by, rather than planning and zoning staff. And then we removed the condition limiting the applicant to 30 exotic dangerous wild animals. Now, we did amend some conditions, and one of the amendments or additions was creating an animal unit chart. And I want to show, if I can, the commission. So every property that is in unincorporated Clay County has to abide by animal standards. So the difficult part of this case is we don't, in our current code, have animal charts for exotic dangerous wild animals. So this is out of our current code, and this is how we regulate animals on just normal properties that are less than 20 acres. Is we have this chart, and it tells us, for instance, that a goat counts as 0.2 animal units, and you're allowed to have 1 animal unit per acre. So in Ms. Casterman's case, she has 3.03 acres. She's allowed to have 3.03 animals. Now, what staff did was we came up with an animal unit chart specifically for exotic dangerous wild animals. The thought there was to regulate this just like we would any other animals in unincorporated Clay County. And we came up with this chart assigning an animal unit to each individual animal that Ms. Casterman has, mainly based on size. Like she has, I think it's 4 goats. That one was easy because our current code tells us it should be 0.2 animals. Now, all these ringtail cats, prairie dogs, we had to classify each of those animals into the chart and give them a number. By putting all of Ms. Casterman's animals into our current chart, we come out to 4.22 animal units per acre, which would be over the 3.03 animal units allowed by the current code. So that was one of the big changes we made between the meetings. So then the case was heard again at the May meeting with testimony given from the applicant, opposition, staff gave a report, and the Planning and Zoning Commission did vote at that second meeting with a vote of 5-0 to recommend denial. Another couple things that we did address between the 2 meetings were Ms. Casterman did put up 5 signs declaring this facility an exotic dangerous wild facility, which is required by the code. So you'll see that as condition 14. That condition has been taken care of. And then there was discussion about the animal waste and how that was being handled. Staff reached out to the disposal company and verified that Ms. Casterman is dealing with the animal waste correctly. As I stated, Planning and Zoning Commission did vote 5-0 to recommend denial. Staff's recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission at each meeting was also for denial for a couple reasons. We believe there was lack of compliance with section 151-1.7, which is the purpose and intent of the Land Development Code. And then I'm going to go back to the conditional use permit criteria. Staff believes there's lack of compliance with A, B, and F, which I'm going to specifically go to those 3 criteria, if you can bear with me. So A is the proposed use complies with the intent of the comprehensive plan and general provisions of the Land Development Code, modified for the specific use and requests. B is the proposed use in its proposed location will not have a substantial adverse impact on the public health, safety, or general welfare. And F is the proposed use is compatible with adjacent uses in terms of scale, site design, and operating characteristics. Staff does not believe it meets those three conditional use permit criteria.
Mr. Jones, I had a question. I was following you there. I got E and F on that. What was the first letter that you had visited?
A, B, and F.
Thank you. Please proceed.
And let me get back to my place in the staff report. And then we also believe that there's lack of adequate buffer distance, thereby causing concern for health, safety, and general welfare of surrounding residents. However, with any case that we recommend denial, we do plan for if the Planning and Zoning Commission or County Commission does vote to approve. So that's the reason we came up with the conditions that are in the staff report. But Planning and Zoning Commission did vote to recommend denial. I believe the County Commission has a couple different choices. First one would be to follow the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission and recommend denial. If that is the route the County Commission goes, staff would recommend allowing the applicant 90 days to discontinue the use of the facility at this location. However, if the County Commission votes to approve, staff recommends approving with the conditions that are in Exhibit A. And the County Commission can add, delete, amend the existing conditions. I do want to go over a couple of the conditions. The first one is number 2. There was much discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting about having the applicant, if approved, coming back after a 1-year time period. And that's what this condition discusses, is it would require the applicant to come back, if approved after 1 year, go in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission and County Commission to make sure that the facility was being kept up correctly and all the conditions were being met as well. 3 and 4 have to do with the conditional use permit being able to be revoked if conditions are not followed through with, or if there are substantiated code violations. And then condition 6 talks about the facility being inspected twice by planning and zoning staff a year, with allowing one of the USDA inspections to be allowed to comply with one of those 2 inspections if the USDA inspection includes an animal unit count as well. And then the big one really that we added that we already kind of discussed a little bit is number 11, which would allow or would limit the applicant to 3.03 animal units. This would not include the 3 domesticated dogs and 4 cats that are allowed by the Land Development Code. And we actually included this Asian leopard cat and a Geoffroy, which is also a cat, as part of the domestic cats, and they wouldn't count in this animal unit chart. I chose to do that because they are basically the size of a house cat. But currently, the applicant would be over the number of animals that she would be allowed to have. And then the last thing I want to go back to is, I talked about adequate buffer distance, and you can see there are a couple houses that are within 150, 200 feet of this facility. So this one's about 225 feet. So that was one of the reasons that Planning and Zoning staff is recommended denial to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I would be happy to answer any questions the commissioners may have and or go over in any more detail the report.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Carpenter, do you have any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Thompson, do you have any questions of Mr. Jones, excuse me?
No, Commissioner, thank you.
Very well. So next we will, yes, Mr. Counselor, please proceed.
Yeah, Mr. Jones, just a few questions. Looking at the staff report, you mentioned some buffer distances. Can you go to that screen? And can you, in that, the actual subject property, can you identify for the commission where the housing units are for the animals?
Yes, so some of the animals are, this is the house here, some of the animals are located inside the house.
Okay.
And then you can see, I believe, this is the outside perimeter fence of where most of the outside animals are kept. And then
Okay.
there's an inner perimeter fence. Now, I believe some of the smaller animals, like when I visited the subject property, some of the tortoises and things like that go outside in front during the day, but they're not there constantly, so they can kind of be scattered throughout.
Okay. And you mentioned some distances. Can you show us how you arrived at those distances?
Yes, so if I measure from this house to that outside perimeter fence, that's about 250 feet. If I measure from this house to right in that area, it's about 182-ish.
And how far is it from the actual, from those two houses to the lot lines?
So from the house to the west, it is about 144 feet or 45. And then this house to the northeast is about 45 or so.
Okay. And then what about from the house to house? Because you mentioned the enclosures, but you also mentioned there are animals inside the house itself.
So the house to the east is roughly 100 feet. The one to the west is about 175. And I will add that this is a pretty dense neighborhood for unincorporated Clay County. Majority of the lot sizes are 3 acres. And if I zoom out a little bit, there's several different subdivisions in this area. There's one to the south, which are similar sizes, and then some lots also to the north that are smaller as well.
And is this a cul-de-sac?
Yes, sir.
How many houses are in the cul-de-sac?
Let me zoom in. So there's one, Ms. Casserman's property, then second, so there's 3 in the cul-de-sac, including Ms. Casserman's.
Okay. And you may or may not know this. What is the distance that you're required to give notice to neighbors?
1,000 feet.
Do you know how many neighbors are within that 1,000 feet?
I'm going off memory, I believe it was 36.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask you another quick question on page 4 of your report. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
Under outside agency review, there are 4 paragraphs. The last one is by far the longest, and it's involving a discussion with Angela DePoe from the USDA regarding fencing.
Yes.
So my question is, the very last sentence, it says fences less than 8 feet high for dangerous animals and less than 6 feet high for other animals must be approved in writing by the administrator. So, and I know that there is a letter from the USDA regarding some approval. My question to you is, do you believe the approval we have from the USDA meets that requirement, or is there an additional requirement that needs to be met?
I believe that she meets that requirement currently.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I had for clarification.
Very well.
Now, I would say Mr. Ford probably will have some questions.
Sorry, we just want to make sure I get procedurally correct on this. Mr. Ford, if you would like to, please proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, the 2 closest neighbors, would you point out their residences and tell me who the owners of those are?
Yes, this property to the west, I show the current owner is Lori and Bradley Hosford. And the one to the northeast is John and Marcia Reese.
And you've not had any complaints from either of those neighbors?
I'd have to look at the letters. I honestly don't remember. And not complaints, but they may have submitted a letter of support or opposition. I don't remember which way.
And Mr. Ayers, where's his property at?
Believe he is to the south. Let me find his. This is Mr. Ayers' property right here. It's 8006 Windsor.
And approximately how many feet would his residence be from the stations?
Approximately 560 feet.
Thank you. I know the code lumps in exotic, wild, and dangerous animals, but you've been out to Ms. Castleman's property, you've seen the animals. Would you consider any of her exotic animals dangerous?
I'm not sure I know how to answer that question. Yes, I think some of them could potentially be dangerous.
And which ones?
The larger cats.
And what do you base that on?
Just my experience of hunting, fishing, seeing bobcats in the wild. The cats, when I initially, so I was building inspector when this case first came, when we became aware of this case in 2015. So I was in charge of the code enforcement at that time. So I was the first one to go and take pictures of the property. And I had access to one of the neighbors' property and just took some pictures, didn't think I could see a whole lot, got back to the office, blew those pictures up, and I was, to be honest, I was stunned that I saw one of the cats staring back at me, one of the bigger cats, and didn't realize it was there. So that took me aback a bit.
And so you've been with Clay County Planning and Zoning since 2015?
2014, December.
And during that time, have there been any complaints about any of the animals other than when you come up for renewal of the CUP?
We did have one phone call shortly after the first conditional use permit was approved, saying that one of the animals got out. That was never substantiated, and I don't believe that was the case, but none other than that.
That in fact was not one of Ms. Castleman's animals.
I don't believe it was.
Okay, so we have 7 years of experience since you've been here without any issues as to the dangerousness of the animals.
Yes, sir.
And you would agree with me that not all exotic animals are dangerous,
Yes, sir.
and not all dangerous animals are exotic?
Yes, sir.
That there are animals in Clay County, wild animals, that are dangerous to the public.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the bobcat.
Yes, sir.
There's no bobcats on Ms. Castleman's list.
I'd have to look at the list again. I don't think she has bobcats, no.
How many times have you been out to her property?
So I've driven by several times, but actually visiting, I can remember two. Once we had a site visit as part of the original case, and then I met Ms. Castleman out there once between the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings this time.
Excuse me for a moment, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just got word that you were not being heard online, Mr. Ford, so please use your microphone and turn it on. Sorry.
You good, okay. Mr. Jones, the times you were out there, the animals were well cared for. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And are you familiar with USDA requirements?
No.
Now, the zoning code at one point made an exemption for the need for a CUP for exotic animals if someone had a USDA license. Is that correct?
I'd have to look at the old code. It's not in the current code.
Okay. There is something in the current code that talks about if you had previously you had a USDA license, you were exempt from the CUP. Do you recall that?
I do not.
You don't recall that?
Being exempt if you had a USDA license, I do not, no.
Do you know what the purpose of the animal units are?
To limit the impact on the land and the adjacent property owners, in my opinion.
And that's primarily a DNR, Department of Natural Resources requirement?
I think our code is based on some state regulations, if that's what you're asking.
And it's based on grazing?
Some of it, yes, I would think so, yes.
Okay. Other than Ms. Casserman's goats and chickens, would you consider any of her other animals grazing animals?
Honestly, I don't know enough about the tortoises and the other animals that she has to answer that.
Okay. You've had a list of all her animals.
Yes. Large grazing animals, no.
So her animals, regardless of the number, would have very little impact on the property.
As far as grazing, yes.
Your report and you have talked about the purpose and intent of the code, but would you agree with me that the code specifically allows a CUP for exotic animals in R1?
Yes.
So if the intent of the code was not to allow exotic animals in R1, it certainly doesn't state that, does it?
Correct.
The Planning and Zoning Commission did not give a reason for their recommendation of denial, did they, in their motion?
Correct.
And are you familiar with the bylaws of the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that Rule 13, a denial must have a reason?
I'd have to look at the bylaws. I'd have to review the bylaws, but I am familiar with them, but not enough to not to review them on a specific line item.
At one point, you had discussed with Ms. Casserman that the CUP be for 10 years. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And another point, 5 years?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of discussions about the time, yes.
Okay. But now your recommendation, if it's granted, is only 1 year?
Correct.
How long have you been the Director of Planning and Zoning?
Roughly 6 years.
Okay. And prior to the application for renewal of the CUP, how many complaints have you received on Ms. Casserman's property?
Can you ask that question again?
Yeah, how many complaints have you received prior to the renewal of the CUP application?
One complaint, which was the initial complaint that
the
we looked at
Bobcat.
in 2000, well, so two complaints then. The initial complaint, which is why planning and zoning staff went and looked at the property in 2015, and then the one complaint about an animal being loose that I don't believe was correct.
Okay, so is it fair to summarize that this property and the existing CUP and the exotic animals on Jennifer Casserman's property has not been an issue?
I would say we have not received complaints, and I believe the animals are well cared for. However, during this process, we did notice code violations that were not related to the animals. It was related to junk and debris on the property.
And they've been remedied, is that correct?
I don't know. I've been told they've been remedied. I have not visited the property to verify that.
Thank you. And she was not cited for those code violations, was she?
That is correct. We just asked her to correct those.
Okay. And you haven't been back out to see whether they've been corrected?
No, sir, I haven't.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you.
Just a couple, if I may, a couple quick follow-ups.
Please proceed, Mr. Counselor.
I understand that there may have been a mic problem with Mr. Ford, so I want to make sure that at least a couple points are clarified. Do you recall during your initial testimony, Mr. Jones, that Mr. Ford asked you if you considered any of the animals out there to be dangerous? Do you remember that question?
Yes, sir.
And can you just restate your answer to that question for clarity?
I initially stated that I wasn't sure how to answer that, and then I stated that I believe I told the story about me doing the inspection and taking pictures, and that I did believe some of the animals could be dangerous because I was taken aback by not realizing that I was that close to some larger cats until I got the pictures back to the office and blew them up.
Okay. And then, can you go back to your map real quick? I just want to ask you, with your technology, where some folks live that are, I guess, have expressed that they are against this. And this is all in the packet. Would you want me to give you a name or an address?
Let's do addresses.
7600 Windsor Drive.
So that one is this corner property, and here is the subject property.
Very good. And then several on Oakland, okay, I'm sorry, 70, I'm trying to be simple here, 7616 Windsor Drive, I assume is very close to that one?
This one is 7616, and here's the subject property.
7820 Windsor Road, Windsor Drive, I assume that's the same?
7820 backs up to the subject parcel.
Okay. And then a couple that looks like are on Oakland. 10323 North Oakland.
Just bear with me.
Sure.
My computer's not cooperating.
10323.
I don't think that's a proper address.
Well, I've got one,
Do you have a name for that one?
last name Wantland, W-A-N-T-L-A-N-D.
That is this property right here.
Okay, and then there is another one, 12923 is the other property on Oakland.
It's this corner lot right here, two houses down.
Okay, very good. That's all I had. And the final thing would be to request of the chair that Mr. Mr. Jones' staff report be adopted into the record, admitted into the record.
Yes, the,
I would
Yes, sir.
object to the 3 letters at the back of the report that they were received after the Planning and Zoning Commission This body is to make its decision based on substantial and competent evidence presented at this hearing. I am unable to cross-examine letters. I believe the letters are hearsay and should be considered inadmissible.
Could you identify those letters a little more closely? Maybe perhaps the persons who sent them in so that we can make sure we're talking about the same documents.
I did not get a copy of the report.
Oh.
Could I get a copy of the report?
I think, I've got two. I think this one's identical. It'll be towards the end.
It'd be the letters on pages. It'd be the last 4 pages, starting with Mr. Ayers, Mr. Totten, and Mr. Schlosser.
Okay, so I have Mr. Totten, Mr. Ayers, and was the...
Mr. Schlosser.
Schlosser, okay. There we are.
And Commissioner, my recommendation as county council would be to include these as in the report, accept them as part of the record, and take them for the value of and the weight of the evidence.
So your recommendation is that we not exclude those letters?
We keep those and admit those into evidence in this matter.
Now, just as a technical point, is that something that I should get consensus from the commission on, or is that something I, as the presiding, should be ruling on?
I think the chair makes those decisions, is my belief.
I thought so too, but we're a little bit off of the normal beaten path, so I thought I would ask. I will follow the recommendation of county council and include everything which would be inclusive of the 3 letters in question in the back of the document.
And with that understanding, Mr. Jones, very quickly, could we show the commission where those folks also live? 8006 Windsor Drive. I don't think we've done that one yet.
This one is 8006 Windsor Drive, backs
Okay.
up to the subject property.
And then Mr. Schlosser, which is 7626 Hauser Street, which I assume is in the cul-de-sac?
That is the lot kind of catty corner from Ms. Casserman.
Okay. And then Mr. Totten's was 7616 Windsor. I believe we've already identified that one, I thought.
This is 7616 on the corner.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Do you have one follow-up?
Please proceed, Mr. Ford.
You did receive letters of support from neighbors, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You received a letter of support from the residents at 7814 Hauser Street? That would be in your attachment E.
Yes, 7814 Hauser Street, yes.
And where's that property?
Right across the cul-de-sac.
Okay, so that is one of the folks that lives on the cul-de-sac?
Yes, sir.
And then you received a letter of support from the resident at 7821 Hauser?
Yes, which is this property right next door.
So right next door to Ms. Casserman. Then you received a letter of support from 78, from Delgados, who live on Windsor Drive, and where would that property be?
7807. So let me zoom out, but it's across the street on, come on. So that is 7807 Windsor.
And so would you agree that two of the four properties closest to Ms. Casserman have submitted a letter of support?
Yes, sir.
The two of the four properties most directly impacted by the CUP?
That's the one right next to you also. On the other side.
7850.
Oh, that's me. But this one's right next door. The other side. That's the rat.
Oh, I missed that one.
I don't know. Only part of it submitted. It's right
Mr.
there.
Ford?
We didn't get the whole picture.
Mr. Ford, when you're talking, you might want to kill your mic when you're having
Oh,
those
okay, thank you.
conversations.
And there was one other from a resident on the other side of Ms. Casserman. It doesn't look like the entire letter made it in the packet, but it would have been at the bottom of the letter from the Delgados.
Yes, and that was the entire letter. That was all that was sent.
Okay. So three of the four most impacted neighbors have sent you letters of support.
Three close neighbors have sent letters of support. I believe the whole neighborhood is impacted.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any follow-up from the commission? Seeing none. So we'll go to the applicant. So with that, I was going to say we've been at it for about an hour. This strikes me, it might be a good time for maybe a 5-minute break. Okay. If that's acceptable, we'll come back on the hour, and then we will take up the testimony of the applicant, and we will proceed from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think so. Yeah. Have to remember
We are back from our short break, so we are now ready to resume where we left off. Do I need to recognize?
That's it. Yeah, let's go ahead and head to Commissioner Thompson.
Commissioner Thompson, I believe you wish to be recognized.
Thank you, Commissioner. Due to I have previously hired JK Animals LLC, and to even avoid the appearance of impropriety, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
Thank you very much for making us aware of that and taking that action.
So I think, and based on that recusal, I think Commissioner Thompson can probably exit the room, and since this is our only issue today on our agenda, I think she could probably be done for today.
Very well. You are excused. Thank you very much. With that, we will now proceed with the testimony of the applicant. Mr. Ford?
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. I'm going to go slightly out of order and call Betty Ock to the stand.
Okay. And do speak a little bit more into your microphone as we go along. If the clerk would, if the lady would like to come forward to the podium, the clerk will swear you in, and we will then proceed from there. As that's going on, please, as a reminder, speak directly into the microphone, make sure the green light is on, and identify yourself when you're speaking for the benefit of our audio-only recordings. Thank you.
Betty Ock.
Raise your right hand. In this matter in which you are about to testify, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. Ford, you may proceed.
If I might call you Betty?
Yes.
I understand you go by BJ?
Yes.
Okay, BJ, would you state your name and your professional address, your work address?
I volunteer at that place.
Okay.
So-
And what is the name of that place?
My name is, I go Betty Jean, let's just go with that. I get called BJ. I am the Director of Operations. It's a volunteer position at Cedar Cove Feline Conservatory and Education Center in Lewisburg, Kansas.
Okay. And what happens at Cedar Cove?
Cedar Cove is dedicated to educating people about conservation issues surrounding exotic big cats and exotic predators, not just exotic predators, predators around the world, and the importance of their existence for the ecosystems of the world. We are open to the public on Saturday and Sunday. We give guided tours to visitors who come in, and we also do a lot with school groups for conservation education.
Okay. And would you consider some of the cat species out there dangerous?
Yes, sir.
And what are some of the cat species you have out there that are dangerous?
We have African lions, all of the big cat species, which include, we have African lions, we have a leopard, and we have tigers. And so I do consider them dangerous animals.
Okay. And do you have any other exotic cats?
Yes, we have a caracal, 2 servals, an Asian leopard cat, a Eurasian lynx, and 4 bobcats, and a puma.
Okay. And of the exotic, the servals, for example, do you consider those dangerous?
It depends on a person's definition of dangerous. Dangerous to me means that I'm in harm's way if I'm around them. So no, I don't consider, the puma, yes. The puma is a 100-pound cat, and we do not go in with the puma, we do not go in with the leopard, we do not go in with the 55-pound Eurasian lynx, we do not go in with the tigers, and we do not go in with the African leopards, because yes, they are dangerous.
Okay. But the smaller cats you do not consider dangerous?
No.
So is there anything other than size that differentiates a dangerous cat from a non-dangerous cat?
Yes, power and strength. Our big cats have claws, and their claws could, because we have sufficient enclosures, they can't get their heads out, but paws can reach. Claws from a big cat can kill. Claws from a small exotic can't kill.
can scratch.
Yes, they can scratch.
Any different than, for example, a house cat?
No. No, I've been clawed by my house cats, and never had to have stitches. I've been clawed by not clawed, one claw, a caracal, and did not have to have stitches.
And are you familiar with the cat species that Jennifer Kasserman has?
Yes.
What are her cats?
She has servals, Canadian lynx, Eurasian lynx, caracals, Joffroy's cats, Asian leopard cats, and that's all I can think of right now.
And what weight classifications would they?
I would say the heaviest cat would probably be the Eurasian lynx, maybe a 40 to 50 pound cat,
Okay, and the other cats, the servals, for example?
25 to 30 pounds.
Okay. And do you consider any of those cats dangerous?
Not in my opinion.
Okay. And you are familiar with the specific cats she has on her property?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. How long have you worked with the cat species?
20 years.
Thank you. Nothing further?
Mr. Counselor?
Just a few very quick questions. I think you indicated that the animals that are on site at Ms. Kasserman's property, I think you said it depends on whether they're dangerous, and you don't consider them dangerous to you. Is that correct?
I don't consider them dangerous to humans.
Okay. And you have training on how to be around cats like that. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Are these cats carnivorous?
Yes.
Okay. Would it be your testimony then that I think you said the Eurasian lynx gets up to 50 pounds, or the one that she has is up to 50 pounds?
The one we have is 50 pounds.
Okay.
We have a Eurasian lynx. I know she has a Eurasian lynx. I don't know how much it weighs.
Okay. Would it be potentially dangerous to a child?
Yes, exotic animals are can be dangerous to children.
Okay. And that would include the servals and both types of lynx?
If allowed to have contact, yes.
Okay. Nothing further.
Anything further, Mr. Ford? Very well. We will hear from the next person.
Thank you. Jennifer Kasserman.
Jennifer Kasserman.
Would you raise your right hand? And is that on which you're about to testify? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name.
Jennifer Kasserman,
Mr. Ford, when you are prepared.
Thank you. Jennifer, where do you reside?
7815 Hauser Road, Kansas City, Missouri, 64167, in unincorporated Clay County.
And you're the applicant here today for renewal of your conditional use permit.
Correct.
And your business is JK Animals LLC, Exotics RS.
Correct.
How would you describe your business generally?
We are an education institute that teaches all ages about proper animal husbandry and different species with the purpose of conservation, preservation of the animals.
Is your business model somewhat unique?
Yes.
So would I be surprised to find something similar in Springfield, Missouri, or St. Louis, Missouri, or Columbia, Missouri?
You might find one or two similar in a state or different states around, but we're very unique with this. I don't know of any in those cities you said, I'm sorry.
What is your professional background?
I'm an educator, licensed through the state of Missouri. I teach elementary art. I'm certified K-12. I've taught other grade levels and other avenues. I've worked with exotic animals, cats specifically, for over 10 years. I've been educating and working with different zoos, sanctuaries, and other animal groups for over 10 years. Also, I've been teaching in a classroom for 13 years. I've had my own business doing this since 2014. So,
What are some of the associations you're connected with?
I am for Feline Conservation Federation, FCF. I am services director there. I am a business member with AZA for American Zoo Association. I'm a business member with ZAA, Zoological Association.
So one of the things your business does is you exhibit your exotic animals.
Correct.
And what are some of the groups you've exhibited to over the last several years?
I was like, we've exhibited to groups all over, all at different ages, anywhere from, babies, baby age, toddler, all the way up to, we go to nursing homes, we go to libraries, we go to public schools, we go to private schools, we go to daycares, we do private public events, we do events that have to do with like specific education if there is something on a species, teaching, husbandry.
You also do private events?
Yes, so like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, also would be one of our private events. They have, we also we do birthday parties. And with that, like we've done birthday parties for 1-year-olds, we've done birthday parties for 70-year-olds.
Okay. And do you bring the same animals with you each time?
One of the things with the animals that we make sure of is we don't make the animals do anything they don't want to do. They're a lot like us, and some days they have good days and bad. So I have multiple of some species, and it's whoever wants to go. And also then however, who can fit and go along. Standardly, we take 6 to 8 species with us when we go somewhere. And those species vary depending on what the event is. For example, one of our Montessori schools has us come out around spring break time of year, and they're always doing mammals then. So we have a curriculum-based presentation that we do with them. We only have a few reptiles to do that, and just kind of, it's almost like quizzing and rewarding the kids for what they've learned and the answers they know, with coming up and being able to differentiate that between they've learned about this reptile species and they can identify a mammal and all that. So it could be different species for different birds. It just depends on what the needs are or what they want.
Now, you're also in the business of conservation of the species.
Correct.
Explain that.
So I have a Class B USDA license that allows me to exhibit and to breed. One of our breeding programs is the swift fox, for example. Swift fox is native to North America, some like Texas, Oklahoma originally, and then also further north, Canada. They were deemed endangered years ago, and a small group got together and has been trying to work to bring preservation of them. They only breed once a year, typically. They're with just humans coming into their area and taking over the land and stuff, it's made it very hard as a species for them to feel comfortable and to procreate and be able to keep going. So that's why obviously endangered. They've now, with groups and people like me that have been working with My Skulk, we've brought the population up to 30% back to that, to where it has inhibited the North America and the United States and Canada, and it's no longer on the endangered list. Many public zoos breed different animals and things, but a lot of them they can't or are unsuccessful because the animals have people coming in all the time and seeing them, just their lifestyle, and the place that they're at isn't conducive to them naturally to be able to do that. So I'm more of a private place for them. It's their home. They can feel comfortable, and we're more successful that way to help with the preservation. So also taking these different animals to meet different people and educating about them is a big thing, because lots of the species I have, people don't even know what they are. I've never heard of them, maybe heard of it, but didn't know exactly what it is. See a picture and realize that, a raccoon's not a cat, maybe. The different things there, you see on TV, a hedgehog but have never seen one up close. You've maybe seen a swift fox, or you don't even know that that one exists without having somebody there to teach you the knowledge about it. And then we teach, where it lives, its habitat, what's happening with its habitat, if it's in trouble there, what they need to survive. And if somebody doesn't know an animal exists, then they're not going to be able to know to try and help and preserve it, to keep it around. So that's what we do. We introduce that's the preservation part of it and conservation.
Okay. And just ballpark, how many times do you think you've exhibited your animals?
I was like, I don't even know. I mean, typically I would say this last year COVID's been a little bit of a different situation, but at least one exhibit a week, since I do teach in the public schools during the school year. Weekends are pretty much whenever we go and exhibit. During the summer, we would be booked daily for multiple programs in a day, but for the animals, for them to be comfortable, their safety and their health, we only do so many programs in a day. Like, we don't go in and exhibit an animal for, if somebody has 5 classes that we're going to a school for example, like we have some of those coming up in July, we actually then have to go to the school multiple days because the animals don't exhibit that. I mean,
Do you work with others?
yes.
Who do you work with?
I work with other handlers, other USDA licensees, other sanctuaries, other zoos, private facilities. I work with different, cities, county administrators with, as far as I've worked with Lee Summit before out to do, with Legacy Park, they had us to come out to do a big presentation just for, kind of like a theater in the park night, but not, there was animals in the park, so. All different organizations.
What kind of zoos have you worked with?
Cincinnati and Columbus Zoo are, I would say, the primary ones that I've worked with. I've also, Tanganyika in Wichita is one. The Columbus, we do a program with them to where they would, it's like our servals, for example, they would take on a baby, train it, use it for their programs there at the zoo on site, take it to exhibits, and then they either, keep the animal for exhibiting, but if they decide to retire the animal or done, then it comes back to us, or it comes back to me, to then.
So the
care.
animals may not live with you from birth to death?
They may not, that's true. And some of them may end up living with me at birth and then come back and I have them then, until death afterwards. But
Who are some of the folks you've worked with whose names the commission might recognize?
well, I said Columbus and Cincinnati Zoo, Jack Hanna is there within the wilds. So some of the cats that go over, and actually they've had ones that are specifically in the wilds part. The zoo has 2 different sides, and worked there with him and have been exhibited. The last servals that were on Letterman before he retired were 2 of mine that came with Jack Hanna there from the zoo. Jared Miller's one that worked with different animals of mine.
And those were servals that were on David Letterman?
Yes.
Do you ever exhibit the cats?
Yes.
Okay, which cat breeds do you exhibit?
I've exhibited each one of my cat breeds before, but as I said earlier, the animals, we don't make them do anything they don't want to do. There's a certain point where some of them decide. Basically, if an animal that's under 6 months or a year old or being with me, we call them their ambassadors in training, almost like they're interning, seeing what they want to be when they grow up. If they show, any type of being uncomfortable, anxiety, something like that they don't want to do, we always say, you don't want to go somewhere if it wasn't fun or, if you weren't comfortable, so we don't make the animals do that. I've had ones that, are the first ones at the door when they see me coming because they're ready to go and want to go somewhere, and then I've had some that have always been like that, and then just one day decide that, they're ready to retire or not. So, but I've taken each species of cat. I've had at least one of them go. I've got one adult that is pretty much, ready to go most of the time. And, a couple others that kind of jump in to go. Being that I do part of the breeding program with them. There is a certain time of year where I wouldn't even ask, like the lynx, for example, when they're breeding into like December, then through March, and then there's about 6 months actually that they're not even an option because it would interfere with their natural timeline for them to be together, and taking them out in the public or something would mess up the whole purpose of the conservation of that. And then also, we don't take out, a cat or any animal that could possibly be pregnant, and anything that would be some sort of stress or something that would put on it. That's the whole purpose, is that they're comfortable and not stressed, so we wouldn't do that.
So what is your business model? Do you make money when you exhibit animals?
I was like, the animals make make money for, helping out with taking care of feeding themselves. Yes, I was like, we do charge for programs, depending on the group and the situation, depends on, of course, what it is. We've also done some, at no cost volunteer ones, or examples we've helped with fundraisers and things also, where we don't, we donate our time.
Would you be able to stay in business if you didn't have your servos, your cat species?
No, I say that the whole way that I got into this, I blame it on one serval. It was her fault, but not in a bad way. She was just the first one. But I mean, I don't breed back to back. I'm not breeding animals like all of the time. But one litter of servals is going to pay for all the animals to eat for a month or two, depending. If a litter of hedgehogs gets my handlers that are there helping clean and feed him, taking care of, to be there. So
Now, you
That's
are
correct.
licensed by the USDA,
correct.
and what type of license do you have?
I have a Class B license. They call it a dealer or a broker license. There are 3 licenses for USDA. You've got your A license, which is breeding specific, B, which would be brokerage, and C, which is exhibiting. The reason that I have the B license is because I do take the animals and exhibit. If you're breeding any exotic animals that USDA regulates, you're not to go exhibit them. You can't do that without that license. If you're, exhibiting animals places, you can, if an animal has a baby or something, place it somewhere, but you can't. You're not necessarily supposed to accept money for them, and it needs to be more of like an accident, not something that you're planning. And with the preservation of the species, for example, the swift foxes, for that, we're hoping for that, we're wanting that, and then, the servals, the cats, they're the more expensive, ones. I guess they're the money makers when it comes down to that, as far as how much one of them goes compared to, even saying like a hedgehog. As I said, one of them can feed everybody on site, a month or two.
What does, in terms of your business, your property, what does the USDA regulate?
USDA regulates everything. They regulate the housing, they regulate sanitation, like trying to go in their order, vet regulation, the temperature control, the perimeter fencing, the outer fencing, the inner fencing that actually the cats are exposed to, the enrichment, their housing, ventilation, temperature, because here in Missouri, we've got extreme heat one day, and snow the next day, right? Different species that I have naturally are not from those types of environments. So, they make sure that every animal that's outside has shelter, in the summer, we've got to put shade cloths up for that to provide them shade. In the winter, we remove some of those because, we can't have something that's going to carry weight and then, cave that in. But they have to have heated houses. We have water that's running, so they have to have, fresh drinking water every day at all times. So, run the heated bowls that way. Here in the summer right now, we've got sprinklers that we start doing. Some of them get waterfalls. Also, so then they regulate inside also, because some of my species, 74 degrees is like their ideal temperature, or 80 degrees could be dangerous to them. So we have to make sure that wherever it is that they are, that it's temp control and has it. They regulate their substrate. They regulate the sizes of the places that they're in. Some of the regulations even are like their daily plan and enrichment, as far as like what stimulates them, what you give them to do, so that they're not just sitting there board locked in a cage, rotting away somewhere. They do record keeping is a big thing. I think I said vet care, which that comes along with like pests, any type of vaccinations that they have. I have a vet that's assigned to me that has to come out on site and check.
What kind of reporting requirements do you have with the USDA?
They have records of, one, because we talked about the exhibiting, they know when I'm exhibiting where it is, and they've actually been known to show up where I've been exhibiting before. I've had them show up like a public library there to see, because they regulate everything that goes into that animal. So even, the enclosure that they go into to leave, to go get in the car, the vehicle that they're in, what it's capable of, providing for them, then where it is that we take them, that there's, food, water, anything like that that we need. I mean, we've even got like an emergency box that's in the car specifically for, like, say if a tire blew out and we've got an animal in the car and it's going to take, hours before a tow truck or something could get there, we could get, that they have all of those with us. Same thing for like emergency plans. Also, like, say there was a big drought, or, say, like here this last winter, a great example, people were losing power and all that, what are you going to do, how you're going to maintain the heat for the animals that need it if your power goes out, how you're going to, if there's a water thing and, like there's a boil order and stuff, like we've got gallons of water, stuff like that, that's on hand for it. If like a freezer goes out, I have to have a backup plan, for that to keep the food. They regulate even the containers that the food that's not being fed is kept in, to make sure that there's not, a critter, mouse, something like that, and to make sure that it's fresh.
How about waste disposal? Do they regulate waste disposal?
Yes, we kind of say there's like the three main things that USDA starts with normally is fresh water, waste, and food, to make sure that there's, fresh water that's, provided for them. And also, they even regulate like what the water is given to them in, like you can't give, you can't stick a water bottle on the side of an enclosure for, a cat. A tortoise, they wouldn't be able to drink from that. So, they get very specific also about that. They also, like the vitamins that we feed, like I said, the diet, they, know about that. If there's something out of the ordinary diet, like my veterinarian has to, there needs to be a reason for it. As you're saying, the record.
How about fencing and cages?
Yes.
Tell me what they require.
They require around any facility or whatever, any facility that works with exotic animals, they require a perimeter fence. For small, non-dangerous animals, would be a 6-foot perimeter fence around the property. 8 foot is for large animals. They require, certain species have to have tops on their enclosures if they're outside. Same thing with inside. There has to be stuff so far away from where their enclosure is, you can't set stuff on top of one of them, something that would possibly cave in, or that they could reach out and touch and grab and get and hurt themselves. So my property has a 6-foot perimeter fence that goes around the entire back property. Then the picture that they were showing earlier with that enclosure fence inside, it's an 8-foot perimeter fence inside. It's not required by USDA. If the property wasn't enclosed, I would have to have that perimeter fence around it. But I have a dual perimeter fence just because it keeps them, they're not all spaced out all over the property. They're not far in the back, where I can't see and get to them. So that way then they're enclosed, it's safe. I exceed USDA's requirements with the animals as far as caging spaces. Certain species all the animals have to be able to, stand up, stretch, move around, and have access to their food, water, and waste area on their own. But mine have, 3 times the size of what some of them would be required, square footage. Try to make the enclosures for them as, large as can be, so that they can move around and have fun, feel like their natural environment. Have a place to go if there's, say a storm, for example, that they feel safe and can go get under. If it's hot outside, that they can go over here and they've got a spot for shade, or they can go sit in a hammock and, soak up the sun. I also have, so mine is a little bit unique when I said that I exceed the parameters, is I do have double doors on everything on the house, on all of the enclosures outside and hallways. I think they're referred to as dead man doors when you're dealing with like large cats, large animals. And it's so that, you know, for example, animals that somebody wouldn't be able to go in with, they have to have a spot. You still have to get into that area to clean. So there's a place, you know, that the animal can go, they can be closed off, then that, you know, the handler can go inside and clean the area, provide food, water, all that. So I actually have double doors there and hallways. So if an animal, you know, if a cat decided, if I left a door open or whatever and the cat came out, they've got a whole hallway there that's enclosed with a roof also before they could even get out. When Kip was out, he asked about how many doors it takes like to get to an animal outside. If you walk out a door off the back of my property, it would take you at least 4 doors at minimum to get inside to an enclosure to an animal.
So there's no danger if a small child wanders on your property?
No, I mean, I also have an in-ground pool, so I've got, my fence also, is for that too, so that somebody doesn't come, a child couldn't wander in on that. One thing with the perimeter fence that does, sometimes people get a little confused on, the perimeter fence of the property is actually meant to keep, it's not meant to keep the animals in, their enclosures are there to keep them in, then my extra fence and stuff like that. What the perimeter fence there is for is to keep outside animals, wildlife, and people out off the property.
How long have you been licensed by the USDA?
I have been personally licensed since 2014.
And is it, once you're licensed for life?
No, absolutely not. You're inspected annually at a minimum. You have to renew every year. One thing at this point, like my renewal happens in October. USDA is transitioning to a new licensing thing where they actually are, instead of doing a renewal, they are doing basically like a relicense each time. It's going from, it's taking them a couple, I think 3 years or something for them to get it placed, and you'll be in a tier A, B, and C. But it's not like, I don't just send in paperwork and then, somebody stamps it, says, oh, you're renewed. Like, they have to have inspections, you have to have, no violations, and they can choose to, not give you your license then when it expires with the new process, if they have, substantiated reasons.
Do you know when they're coming to your property?
No, the only time you ever know when they're coming is your first initial application and inspection. And after that, they're all just surprised. I mean, they can show up at any time of day, any night, they could show up on a holiday, they could show up any time that they want to. Typically, when they're just coming, regular inspection, they appear to come at a different time than they did the last time. Like, it's not, you never get them at, noon on a Monday each time. And they also come out different weather times of the year. Like, my last inspection was on New Year's Eve this last year. She showed up that morning. Ice all over the place, snow, everything. But that inspector had never been out there also when it had been that cold. She'd been out there when it had been, super hot and everything. But with that, then she got to see and double check, everything outside. One of the things she was seeing was how it handled, 'cause branches were down, all over the place, different things, but she was there checking to see if the enclosures, if there had been any damage, what we were doing about it, if there was, if the animals, were safe. Again, making sure that they had their temperature, food, all of that stuff that was in place. And then the safety plan also, she checked to see, because I had a tree branch down in the front yard, and so she wanted to know if that tree branch had fallen on this enclosure there, what happens then, what do you do? And, and she sees the plan she sees our plan, but sees also that set up, there's a kennel there that's accessible for, that cat to get into it. All the cats, really all the animals are, I say transport trained in a way as far as like their kennel or their carrier or something like that to know. So, since we're talking about the cats outside, for example, we feed them sometimes in a carrier, and then we'll remove the carrier. But that way, then, so they're not afraid of it, they're familiar with it, and that way, say last night a tornado, possibly it came through. That it's not a matter of sitting there trying to get an animal to go into a space that they've never go into. Even if they don't go and exhibit with us, they are familiar with that so that we can get them, locked, loaded safely where they need to be for their safety and,
So you've been renewed, what, 6 or 7 times now?
yeah, 7.
The surveillance cameras you have on your property, is that required by USDA, or is that something you do on your own?
It's something that I do on my own. It is nice though, if USDA comes out and say I've got, an animal that's, in their house because they're, pregnant and possibly due or something, so that they don't want to disrupt, the natural part of them either and upset an animal, but we can pull it up right on camera right there and they can see that they're in there and see their, health, all of that.
Okay. I want to kind of switch gears in here and talk about the specific exotic animals you have.
Okay.
You have, fair to say, 3 different types of animals. You have exotics that are recognized under the code as being exotic, and
Correct.
others that you would concede would be exotic.
Correct.
You have other animals that you exhibit,
Yes.
and then you have dogs, cats, and a couple farm animals.
Correct.
Okay, so let's start with the farm animals. How many goats do you have?
I have 4 goats.
Okay, the goats, because of the animal units, are causing you an issue that you're probably going to have to get rid of 2 to 4 of the goats. Is that right?
I was like, if, with going along, with working with the commission, and if we go by the animal units chart, then yeah, the goats were, yeah,
And in order to comply with the animal units, you're willing to get rid of your goats.
if that is the case, yes, I'm willing to do that. I would just ask for a little bit of time for it, for me to find proper rehoming places for them, that they have the same, needs that they have now as far as a space to graze and all that, and good place to go.
Are the goats your only grazing animals?
Yes, technically. Chickens I know can be part of an animal unit, but they're not necessarily grazing.
So if the purpose of the animal units is to protect the property from overgrazing,
Correct, to make sure that the land isn't, overused and, deteriorated and all that by the animals, and to make sure that whatever animals that you have there have sufficient amount of, food, whatever they're grazing, for them to be able to be happy and survive. The reason I don't exhibit the goats that I have, the purpose originally with the goats is they're like my lawnmowers, my weed eaters basically. They keep the fence line clean. My fence line on the inside, I try to keep clean. One, USDA does require you're not supposed to have stuff that's inside the fence that, if you've got stuff coming into your fence, and the whole purpose is that another animal can't get in, but if you make it to where then they can just, crawl up the tree right over into it. So the goats really help with that, and they also help with, again, I don't want to scare the animals, make them uncomfortable. Some of them, a weed eater is, terrifying. A mower can be too. So the goats actually, they go in, they, clean out the hallways, they, eat the weeds, eat the grass, eat the plants that I plant, the flowers that my mom likes, or neighbor likes too, so, but, yeah, that's their purpose there.
okay, but you recognize that under the Clay County Code, you can only have so many, we'll call them animal units.
Right,
It's kind of a strange way. Some animals are counted more than as one, many are counted as 0.2 or 0.4.
right,
So without a CUP, while you could not have exotic animals, you could have basically the same number of animals, animal units,
correct,
that you're entitled to on 3.03 acres. Is that correct?
Correct.
And your property is zoned R1,
yes,
and you have 3+ acres.
yes.
And how long have you resided at that residence?
I bought the property in 2010. I owned 3 servals at the time, and the purpose was, I grew up in Clay County. I wanted, to stay there. I've researched and all that, and unincorporated. For me to be able to have the animals, I needed to be on more than 3 acres outside of city limits. And when it's like 2.5 years or whatever, looking for that perfect spot, and found it.
So initially, you did your homework and you believed you were entitled to have those servals,
Yes,
and you found out later you needed a CUP?
Correct,
and then you applied for a CUP.
correct.
You were granted a CUP, but the Pryor County Commission required you to get rid of some of your cat species,
Right,
but did not state a findings of fact as to why.
right.
That's the issue we took up on appeal, and since they were never submitted, we're now back.
Correct. We didn't appeal all of the conditions of the original permit. It was, the condition that we appealed was the one based on the animals and the animal species, because it eliminated some and then wasn't very clear on others.
So let's go through some of the animals.
Okay.
Since I need to be at a microphone, I'll just ask you to, maybe we'll do 3 or 4 of the pictures at a time.
Okay.
So,
Do you want me to hold them? Do you want me to pass them?
eventually I'll pass them to the commission. So
Okay.
what's the first photo of?
The first photo that I have here is, this is Furby. He's one of my fennec foxes. Fennec fox, smallest species of canine in the world, anywhere 2 to 4 pounds. Furby weighs just in about 3, you know, comparable to a like teacup chihuahua.
As we go through those, if you could let us know if that's an indoor and outdoor animal, and whether it's an animal you typically exhibit.
Yes, typically we always exhibit a fox with us, a species of canine or feline. The fennecs go most often, the swift fox goes sometimes, but the fennec foxes live inside. He's spoiled, he likes his air conditioning. And my swift foxes do reside outside most of the time.
So he's the same species as a dog, or all foxes canines?
Yes, they are.
Okay. What's your next photo?
My next photo, I've got 2 actually here, are 3-banded armadillos. I have 2 of them. Basically, with the kids, it's a real-life Pokemon. The 9-banded armadillo is native to North America. This is the 3-banded, which is the one that I have. The 9-banded is like 6 times the size of ours. So you can see just holding it in the hand. Softball is, I would say, maybe the size of my female. Baseball is the size of the male. Here's another, better example there of showing Della, one of our handlers, holding him up. They are insectivores. As far as being not just straight herbivore, they eat insects for their protein. But they like fruits, veggies that way. These guys are inside all the time. If they go outside, at a program, maybe like we did one yesterday actually, and we've got a big mat out on the ground so that they walk around on that. They can be outside with us, but they can't be, they don't really like the heat a whole lot, and we don't want them digging around in the ground eating a bug that could kill them because somebody used insecticide or something like that on land that we don't know of.
Now, you said the armadillo is native to North America, so would the armadillo be an exotic animal?
My species of armadillo is not native to North America. There's only one species that is. That's the 9-banded. I don't have that. This is the 3-banded. They're much smaller. Many of the species that I have, that if they are from here in North America, they are not Missouri native. I would, to have Missouri native, like to have bobcat, that would be under Missouri conservation license or rehab license, so I don't show any native species. Some of the species that I have that specifically are based on their relationship to some of the native ones, so that when we go and talk about them, we can express that, hey, are you familiar with the red and yellow eared slider turtles that are in your native lakes and ponds that the kids see all the time? Well, ours, I think there's one in here that I have, is the I have red and yellow footed tortoise, and the reason we have them is because they're their cousin. You find them in the rainforest in South America, so that's them to be able to educate, show that the difference between turtle and tortoise and all that, but that then they can relate because they have no idea what that tortoise species is. They can then relate to it by the turtle that they've seen.
Okay. And let's do a couple more.
Then let's see, I've got, this is Suki, my Canadian lynx. This is Blue, my vervet non-human primate.
So does Blue indoor, outdoor?
Blue is indoor, he's a vervet, I don't know if I said that. One thing I want to say, some of the animals in the pictures, you may notice that they have like a harness, a leash, or something like that on him, a belly band with him. None of our animals are, if they have that, it's not because they're like a dog and they're going to get down and walk on a leash. It's part of their training. It's part of their moment that they get to shine. They know that when they have, get that on, that it's all about them and they get to show off and the tension's there of that. So, but it's for, their safety, our safety, everybody else to feel safe for them to have those.
And I think when we were talking the other day, I asked what family is that from? It's the vervet.
The vervet,
Yeah.
he is a non-human primate monkey.
Okay, he's a
Sorry,
monkey.
yeah, he's not a great ape. He's not one of the large ones. I can't have those. I won't have those. He's perpetual 2 to 4 year old for the duration of his life, which is 30 plus years. So he still takes a bottle just so that he gets the nutrition, and that way then if he would need to take medicine or vitamins, we can put it in that, so it's something that he's used to. He has favorite movies. He has some movies that he doesn't like, and so we don't watch. He's got toys. He likes to swim in the pool.
Is he a favorite at the shows?
He is. We don't take him everywhere. With COVID at the moment, actually, we're not. USDA has recommended that no non-human primates go exhibit anywhere or whatever that would be taken to the public. So we've been, very careful, especially with him and restrictions there, just even us inside the house, to make sure if there's a quarantine or anything that he's been a part of that to make sure that he doesn't get it. Vervet's an old world monkey. He can catch the common cold, flu, strep throat, any of that stuff. So, if you got a sniffle and if I have a sniffle, somebody else is going to go up there and, work with Blue that day. Because nobody wants a sick monkey, just like you don't want a sick baby. Or
Is he your only non-human primate?
he's currently my only non-human primate. You want me to keep going with these?
Mr. Chairman, if I may pass these to you and the commission. And for purposes of making a record, I would offer those in evidence.
Not immediately, but for purposes, we will want copies for everybody, but for now, I think the main thing is just that they be admitted as part of the record.
Very well. So those of the photos that have been passed around, the photocopies will be made part of the record, and then we'll make some copies for distribution to the other members of the commission.
And just for purposes of the record, it looks to me like there are 4 at this point. Okay.
Could you just go ahead and
Let's mark maybe
yes.
1, 2, 3, 4 in the back.
That way we know what we've got. That quantifies it a little bit. And we'll go ahead and submit it to the clerk now. That way it stays in the possession of staff for the immediate term.
What animal do you have up next?
Next,
Jennifer?
I have Brody, our ringtail cat, also known as the miner's cat. He's part of the raccoon family, Cacomycel. He's basically, fluffy ferret, if you're going to compare sizes to an animal that somebody would be familiar with.
So a ringtail cat is not a cat?
It is not a cat. We actually almost named him when we first got him Not a Cat. Say it real quick, and then people were calling him Nautica, so it ended up being Brody. But yeah, he's not a part of the cat species.
Indoor, outdoor?
It's strictly indoor.
And is that an animal you exhibit?
It is an animal exhibit.
Okay.
I know I mentioned COVID stuff with exhibiting. We've done a lot of virtual exhibits, this last year then, or like Facebook Live ones, Zoom, and even did some pre-recorded ones with some of the libraries with it. Brody's actually in one of those that was recent. This is Squeak. He is my Cody Cotamundi. He's also part of the raccoon family. You would find him in Venezuela. He's a mountain Cody. He has a diaper cover on there at this point, and he's, belly band. Super sweet, super friendly, super energetic, requires a lot of attention, fun stuff there.
Indoor, outdoor?
He's indoor.
Indoor.
So Squeak actually, with an outdoor enclosure, could be something that would be ideal in lots of the zoos they have for him, but when he came to us, he actually was missing all of his top digits. The person that had him before basically they declawed him. I know people have opinions on that. With USDA, we're not allowed to declaw, so we don't get an opinion either way. But, cats have retractable claws, most species, so there's a different way of doing that. The surgery vets can do it. That's, can be considered humanely. His fingers are like a wallaby or almost like ours, so taking his fingernails would be like taking yours, the top digits. So part of this week, if you ever see that he's with me, I have his tail at the base because just to keep his grip, if he jumps up and holds on but doesn't have the dexterity that he would naturally in the wild. So that's an outdoor enclosure. He's going to want to jump up on high stuff and climb and is, likely to fall because he's not capable of doing that. So, we don't say he's special needs or anything there, but we do special things for him. And USDA does regulate and check that to make sure that part of it, we couldn't put him, he couldn't go somewhere and be in a group with a whole bunch of others because just playing, even if they were friends that had their fingernails, claws, would, very likely he would get hurt, not intentionally even, and not be able to, play back, defend himself or any of that. This is Atticus. This is my genet. He doesn't like to sit on a shoulder. He likes to sit on your head. He's also he's part of the, like I said, ferret earlier, referred to Brody, but he is part of that family, the must-live family. Again, but he's a small spotted genet, so like some ferrets, maybe you've seen a big ferret. If you've seen a tiny one, he's going to be more on that tiny size. He also lives inside solely. I've got two here of Jackson and Sienna, two of my serval cats that exhibit. This is Sienna. This is at one of the libraries. She's harness trained there, has, at least not, but goes around, meets people. We don't do touch with a lot of the species. With COVID, we haven't been doing touch at all for the safety of everybody and everything. But we don't want to overwhelm them. We don't want, we don't want discovery of an allergy because, you met an animal that you hadn't before.
About how heavy would that serval be?
I was like, Sienna is, she's a bigger girl. I'd say she gets, she's a little bit over 30 pounds. Jackson, the males are normally taller, more sleek. The males are not as tall, but they're more girthy. The girls are taller and more sleek. Jackson's just a skinny, tall guy. I'd say he's, 22 pounds, maybe 24 on it. But I've had some sort of, especially the older ones, just like some of us, put on a couple more pounds and it's healthy and okay for them to do it. Some of my females that have been breeders, they carry more weight with them also. That's when they get more of the heavier ones.
And they're outdoor animals?
This actually is Jackson inside. The males, as far as, they are going to spray when they become mature, go in the bathroom, all that stuff. So they need to have an outdoor access anyway. But they can come inside. Sienna, obviously, she's inside here also at exhibit. Sometimes she's inside. But primarily, most of them live outside. I have a few servals that, one in particular at the moment that solely lives inside. She does have access to, like she can go at the back deck that's enclosed and all that stuff. She's a little bit weary of outside sounds, so that's part of just getting her comfortable and used to it, but she does go and exhibit public places. This is Bugsy. This is our leopard cat. We talked earlier. She's, she's like 5-6 pounds maybe. She's a little bit heavier than you would think there, as far as she doesn't have the fluff ball that goes with it. Leopard cats are what people use for breeding to make Bengals, the hybrid that are common house pets all over the world. The big thing about Bugsy that we have when we talked about preservation, conservation earlier is most probably everybody in the room maybe has heard of a Bengal cat, somebody having one, kind of like a Persian or not whatnot, but you haven't heard of the leopard cat or don't know that it's actually, the Bengal is a hybrid that's created from an exotic and a domestic. Over the last 20 years that Bengals have come around, the leopard cat has basically become extinct in the United States because of breeding. Everybody, and they definitely didn't want a female. The males are what they used for it, so Bengal breeders went that direction, and in that have bred out the leopard cat. And there's only actually two people that I know of that are currently still breeding leopard cats, and I'm sure that there are a couple other people out there that have some pairs, but there's really not a whole lot of it, and we're very careful also with to make sure that, you know, not inbreeding. So we've got the different groups. FCF, for example, does, you know, we do a breeding line book. We keep track of it. Servals, there's a lot of people that breed them, and now the Savannahs are a big thing that's came up the last few years. You know, I want people to know what a leopard cat is so that they don't become extinct. So that you know what it is, we can see them again and have them. The servals, I'm very adamant about people learning about them and knowing, because with the Savannah cat, we've watched what's happened to the knowledge of a leopard cat and their existence, and we don't want that to happen to servals either. So if people at least know about them, they know how to take care of, preserve, and make sure that they're still there. This is, when you guys see this one, I mean, this is my shoe sitting there. She's tiny. She's also strictly inside. She's gone outside in the enclosed enclosure a little bit, checks it out. She's not too sure. She uses a toilet instead of a litter box for 1 and 2, and so she gets anxiety if she's not around a toilet. It's kind of for personal things. We did that one earlier. Yep. I was like, there's one more cat if you want to. Feline species, do you want to do that? So this is Stretch, my common house cat. This is Sebastian, he's a Joffroy cat. And so this picture is good when it shows the size. Sebastian grew up with Stretch around. This is in-house. My house cat, both of them, the domestics, stay inside. Sebastian likes to be inside as being a male. He also does spray. I have basically like a screened-in porch that's built off the backside that he lives in. I've got a little trap door that goes up to my enclosed porch so he can come into the house, come into the bedroom at times. Again, but it shows just the size, and I think, as Kip had said there, he compared him to, you know, domestic cats.
Would offer exhibits 5 through 13.
Well, please make sure you use your microphone.
I would offer 5 through 13.
Very well, thank you. And they're all, you've got them numbered, so we've got
On the
that?
back.
Very good. Mr. Counselor, did you want to look at those photos, or did we just
No,
pass
I
them?
don't think so.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and give them to the clerk to be included in the record.
Just a couple more.
Do you have other animals?
Yes, a couple more. These also, primarily most of my animal species are inside. So these are going to be them. This is Rue. This is one of our chinchillas. She's one of our handy can animals. She's was born with 3 legs, no injury of that, doesn't know anything different, but she's definitely one of our, a favorite for going out and talking about educating and, you know, showing that just because she's not the same as all the others, that she still can, do all the same things that she should naturally. Size-wise, it shows the chinchilla. This one is in the land code also as a companion animal listed there. I mean, you can go to Petco right now and probably buy one. They are from the Andes mountain range. They can endure cold temperatures, not very hot temperatures, so that's part of why outside doesn't work for them. This is one of our hedgehogs. Hedgehogs originate from England and also Africa. Another one that is a very common pet, one of the ones that we do breed more regularly, but you can go to different pet stores, get them. They are regulated by USDA, still as an exotic, but they fit in your hand, tiny, not even a pound. They're lots of fun. I actually have one that has been my classroom hedgehog at school, so that was fun. The year before last, she had babies over Christmas break, so we got to raise them there at school. The kids got to see them. We compared them like the size of a quarter and all that stuff as growing up, and then they still get to see now. So the parents or some of the kids at different things at exhibits afterwards, and but they've learned about an animal they didn't know about, and now they know it personally. This is one of our prairie dogs. So prairie dogs, you've got different species: prairie dog, black-tailed prairie dog, Utah prairie dog. Some are native in Kansas, some are native in the Dakotas. Again, small. They're part of the rodent family, so they are herbivores. Fun little guys. They are kept as pets in different cities, states. It just depends on, just like anything, what state you're in, what county, what city you live in, the ordinance that they have. Then I've got, I don't have a lot of reptiles, but I showed you the yellow-footed tortoise. It's one of the bigger tortoises that we have. Lots of times people think big tortoise sulcatas are a big one. I don't have any of those. One of the things you got to remember with the animals that exhibit is we have to not just home them, take care of them, but we have to pick them up and move them. So, I'm not looking at even, I don't feel that a sulcata could be a dangerous tortoise, but I know that a few years old, they're 100 pounds, and I know that myself and none of the others want to load that in and out of the car, taking it places back and forth. So with those, for the exhibiting animals, it's nice to have them at the smaller size. This is Barney. This is our Russian tortoise. He's 9 years old. He's not a baby, but he, fits the palm of your hand. Sweet little, very social guy. Gets out, likes to meet people. We say, the animals are hams. They enjoy it, the attention that they get out there for.
Would that be an indoor or an outdoor animal?
He's indoor, based on his size. He could probably, have like an outdoor space, but he has a much better enclosure inside because we can provide like the substrate spots for him to dig and all that, safely, and control it much more with his diet and temperature. The yellow-footed, as I said, and Kip mentioned earlier, some of them would be outside. My yellow and red-footed tortoises and leopard tortoise, they're only outside if it gets into the 40s, they're brought in. So just like a spring fever, when it started to be nice season-wise, they're like, hey, get out and go in the sun. They've got, spaces for them. At the moment, some of the tortoises are in my front flower bed that's in the front yard. USDA doesn't regulate reptiles that are non-venomous, poisonous, or over a certain length and size. They are listed in the LDC reptiles that also are non-venomous and that as being a companion animal, a little domestic. But that's why they're in the front. That's not in my back inner perimeter because the USDA doesn't regulate it and they're not considered any type of dangerous animal that way. It's just like the rabbit in the front yard. This is one of our lizards, a Uromastic lizard. They're a desert lizard. They're also known as a spiny tail lizard. This is a good example. You can see the size or whatever they're sitting on the hand. This one is a picture of an adult. Straight herbivore. Actually, they don't even drink water. They get all of their nutrients, the moisture and all that stuff from the food they eat. They like spring mix, we say fancy salads and all that without salad dressing. And then these pictures, sorry, we had issues with printing there. So this is Biscuit, one of our porcupines. We've got the small there. Yeah. Technology, printing, all that works great. And this is one of picture of one of the caracals. So my North American porcupine and caracal. North American porcupine is not listed specifically in the Land Development Code, but it does have an exotics, a rodent that weighs over a pound. So they qualify for that. So it is one on the exotic list. Again, herbivore, does is inside currently, have an outdoor enclosure for them also. They're not, but it's not a grazing animal as far as would affect any of that. My caracal, at the moment, I don't have a caracal on site right now. We lost our female, and the male is actually out on loan with another zoo, friend of mine in Oregon. If it doesn't work out with the potential girlfriend there, then he will come back. If it does, then we will, look at the options of, having another or both, something like that with him. But he's not on site at the moment, but he is still mine, and that's why he's listed there, and I've had him before. I think that's all of them that are on this.
Does this cover all your exotics, all the different species?
Yes.
I would offer exhibits 14 through 20.
Thank you. Those will be included in the previously submitted materials, which makes a total of 20 exhibits. Is that correct?
Yes. What is the largest animal you have on your property?
My Great Pyrenees dog, domestic dog.
So it's not any of the cats, it's your dog.
Right. Both dogs are bigger than the cats. And then you could go to goats would be the next.
And you've been handling servals now for how many years?
Over a decade.
And then how about the caracal and the lynx?
I've been working with caracals for just a little bit. I'd say like my personal first hands-on always serval, I've got 14 years. The caracals, lynxes then come in at, I've got 10 years of them.
Okay.
Any of the other cats.
Do you consider any of those cats dangerous?
Anything with teeth can bite, anything with claws can scratch. I don't believe that they're dangerous for the, livelihood of any, human or anything like that.
And they are kept in cages for the most part?
We keep them all in their own personal enclosures. It's not a cage. A cage to me is, a box, a square there. Maybe you could call like their transport thing would be a cage. The enclosures include spaces to play, run around, sleep, enrichment, whether it's the hedgehog inside that makes sure that they have their wheel or their little box of pom-poms to play in or weed out and get their mealworms, or a cat that's outside that then has a hammock, aside from its house in a tunnel or something.
Have you had any incidents with any of the cats on your property in terms of public safety?
No.
Have you had any incidents while exhibiting any of the cats in terms of public safety?
No.
How would you describe cat behavior?
I was like, my cat's just like any other cats. And everybody probably knows, somebody that says they have a cat and you don't believe them because every time you've been to their house, you've never actually seen it. And then there's, the person's house that you go to and you're the same color as the cat when you leave because they, were right on you in your lap, shedding all over the place. Cats have their own personalities from, and a lot of times it's not, with the small cats, it's not necessarily species specific, I wouldn't say, other than lots of them do bond to one person, the servals are known to bond to one person, bond to one family. I mean, but so is, again, that goes back to the cat that you never see at somebody's house, but it's always out, when its owner's there.
Do you know which cat Mr. Jones was referring to that was kind of staring back at him when he took the photo?
I don't. I'm not actually aware of that photo. I know that I remember back years when they took pictures of the property from a neighbor's, that, then they contacted me about it with enclosures, but I vaguely remember seeing some photos, but I don't remember actually seeing photos that had any of the animals in it, so I don't know what he saw. It would have been I'm going to say it would have been a serval, a caracal, a Canadian lynx, or the Joffroy.
You have prepared an exotic animal chart, is that correct?
Correct.
And that's based on your interpretation of the code and animal units?
Right. It's based on KIP's proposal for creating a chart and putting the exotic animals in it to correlate with the animal units chart that already exists in the land development code. He came up with it. We worked together on some of the things, and then this is what I think that, based on the species that we have now, how it should be.
And for the most part, it's the same as his?
Yes, it's very similar. There's only a few changes.
Okay. Go ahead. The top animal unit is what?
The top animal unit on this one, and this is, if you've got in the report or whatever, it has KIP's chart. It's just blown up so you guys can see it. The top one has KIP with the lynx, servals, caracals, currently 16 altogether of them. Animal units, put them at 0.08 in total units. This part here that pops out, this is from the LDC directly. It's the parts where I believe that the animals, as we're putting on it, was based on trying to compare to the size. So Kip said earlier goats were easy because they're already in the land code. Yes, so it's right there. This over here is what already exists in the land development code. I'm not proposing any changes to the code. I'm just proposing where I think that the species should be on it.
So for the first category, it's the same as KIP's?
Correct.
How about the second category?
The goats, yes.
Okay. Third category?
Third category, it has the same ones that he has in there. I did move a couple of them out of it to the next category. One of, for example, and right here it says, rabbits and chinchillas, like guinea pigs. Rabbit and chinchilla are in there. Chinchilla, I think, could be, moved, but I'm not asking anything. I'm not trying to change the land development code. I'm totally willing to work with this. I just feel that I have the knowledge of the species and the sizes to, be the educated guess or placement.
So which ones did you move from category 3 to category 4?
I moved the foxes, the hedgehog, the ringtail cat, the genet, prairie dogs, armadillo.
And why did you move them?
I moved them all based on their size and weight of being 5 pounds as their maximum weight listed for those species and what they are. When Kip put his together, yes, the reason that they're at 0.02 is there's parts in it where they start categorizing by birds, other small birds is what it is. He put the sugar glider, Euromastic, and Russian tortoise. Again, we talked about tortoise sizes earlier, so that makes sense because it wouldn't get bigger in there. So I don't see any reason why, if we've got mammals and reptiles going in there, that those mammals, the other mammals that are a comparable size shouldn't be in it also.
Okay. Are your goats on that chart?
They are on the chart. They're the second one there, and then the chickens also are.
And your chickens. So without removing your goats or your chickens, what is the total number of animal units you have?
Mine, with this chart here, it brings it to 3.56. So, in working together, if we're going for the 3.03 to match, if that's what it is, I know the animal units are based on grazing animals, so not all those and some are inside, but if I take out, if I take out all 4 goats, and if I take out the chickens, that would put me there at 2.58. And so it gives me even 0.45 animal units to work with.
So you'd be substantially below the max.
Yes.
Okay, and you could even, if you wanted to, keep 1 or 2 of your goats.
I'd like to keep at least one of them.
Mr. Ford, would it be possible, because it's kind of hard to read from there, could that be maybe put on the table here and the commissioners could take a look at it?
Absolutely. I think it's in the report also. I think you maybe have a copy of it. I feel Kip has done a good job with, trying to come up with a comparison here. Yeah.
We'll go ahead and submit it. If we could mark that as order 22.
No, it's fine. I mean, I'm comfortable with it.
This is mine. There's a little bit of a difference just because we lost one of those, so the number was a little different, and I moved this switch down to that, so it is different.
There's a slight difference. Yeah, a slight difference between the one in Kip's package. Okay, would you, Jennifer, explain the difference between the chart that Kip had in his booklet and
Okay.
this chart?
So in the booklet from what I had submitted previously, the difference in it, the swift foxes are moved with the other fennec foxes based on their maximum weight. And then my number is a little bit different. Our elderly hedgehog, he was almost 6 years old or whatever, he passed, so I have a different number of animals on it. So some of the different things, if you go through and you're looking at the count on stuff, there's some variances there because of, he's no longer with us.
Thank you.
All right, with that notation, I think that would be fine to submit that as the next document.
Offer this as Exhibit 22.
Very well, thank you. Please proceed.
I want to switch now and talk about your property.
Yep.
We've already established that it's 3.03 acres.
Correct.
that you live on a cul-de-sac?
Correct.
And how many properties on the cul-de-sac?
We established 3, including myself.
How many?
3, including myself, 2
Okay,
others.
so a
besides me.
total of 4.
No, 3 including me. Right? Is that what we decided earlier?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Start with the top photo and tell me what that picture represents.
Okay. The top photo, this is, when you pull down to the cul-de-sac and you pull into, pull up to my house, the top photo is a photo of the house currently, 2 days ago. It shows my gate, shows my mailbox.
And
That's
that
what
would
you
have
see
been
from the
taken
street.
from the street?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, actually, these first 3 this is taken from the street directly facing.
So we can keep track. Would you mark that as 23?
Can we hold on for just a second on marking? Hold on. I was going to bring it up and you offered. I think, so I don't think we have a 21.
Did I miss 21?
I thought so, that's why I was
So
asking.
could we call this one 21 and then start with 22 there, just so we don't see a gap?
Okay,
Okay.
so is everybody
So
clear?
Mark-
Everybody's agreed on that as being the way we enumerate them? Thank you.
Jennifer, if you would mark that 22.
Got it.
Okay? What's the next photo of?
The next one is if you're standing closer to the left, Mr. Reese's property, when you're facing the left and looking then just at the front of the property there, the entryway, that's from there in the cul-de-sac.
I'm sorry, whose property is that?
Bill Reese.
Bill Reese. And where's he located? If I'm looking at the street,
Yeah, I was just like, he's right there. He is this one right here, which I'm not sure how many acres that is. I know there was topic of acres as far as the acreage of the properties there, but I know it's much larger than 3 of mine, that mine is.
so is he technically on the cul-de-sac? Does he-
Yes.
Okay. I'm at the end of the cul-de-sac. Okay. Mark that.
23?
23.
So her first one is 22.
Yeah, so this second is 23?
Yes.
Mark that as 23. And
Next would be 24. If you take, this is from Andy Lease. This is standing at her driveway, looking across then what the property looks like from what she sees in her yard from the front. She is directly across. She's right here. She's the other one on the cul-de-sac. Or she's right there. Those are all the ones that I have there face as far as the front. So my pictures show 2 different things in these for examples. Would you like those? Would you like me to address each at a time? One of the things was with the original conditional use permit was a screening that was to be put up. I put up bamboo screening and planted some trees and stuff that didn't necessarily make it, but I guess the question is that it needs to be live screening, so vegetation with that. So I have in the pictures here, it shows different views from the properties, and it will show not only what you see from the side of the property, the street, the neighbors, the road, but also then I've labeled the latest landscaping additions that have been there and where they are in the clumps and stuff.
so that is number 25?
Yes. This one is looking, and the number's on the back of them, not the front. Is that correct? Or do you want them on the front? Okay, just making sure. Thank you. This one shows when you first are, if you are right here on the property standing looking out the back here on this side, this is what you're looking at and seeing in this picture here. So it shows this fence line here in the back, and then it shows the different bamboo clusters that have been put in, and then I've got a large maple tree that we've just put in right there. It also shows, that's what I see as far as the neighbors from inside the fence. So this next one here, I try to kind of like
So this
circle
would
and
be,
go around like
this would be
this.
number 26?
Correct.
And what does 26 show?
26 shows, it is, actually, it's right here is where it is it's showing, and it's showing, but it shows like if you're standing back here at the back fence here, at Matt and Judy's property, they're coming off, it shows this back perimeter fence that they would see. It shows the maple tree, and it shows just the corner of the pond, actually, there up on the hill. Is that view?
And can you see the cages from that, on that photo?
You can't see the enclosures from the photo. When the original CUP with things, knowing that it would take a while for different things to grow, even though I put up the bamboo screening on the actual enclosures on the inside, I also put up shade cloth. Mr. Tapp and I discussed it. It was the same nature, the same color even as the fence, just for put that up there as a barrier to see. One of the other neighbors uses it for around their pool. This then 27 is if you would be standing right here at the property line, looking back, and it shows the pond here, and the pond's elevated from the property that's behind it.
Are you able to see the cages from that photo?
No, you're not. Again, any perimeter fence that you see has a shade cloth on it.
And that's number 27?
27. This one is the rear east side inside the perimeter. So as I said, instead of having like a panoramic that went around from the inside, this one's just moving a couple feet more this way here with if you're standing from the back of Mr. Ayers' property here. Looking there, like I said, I have a septic pond lagoon that was put in by the previous owner or whatever when I bought the house due to laterals and whatnot, the county. That would be 28.
That is number
28.
28.
So taking the tour here, we step back a little bit further, looking up this direction from the angle here of the property. Again, this, we said that that's the, an inner perimeter fence. The enclosures are, further inside that. They're not right up to it. So there's even space that way, but this is looking at the trees that are here already in place that are established in foliage, and then the pond would be 29. If you stand in this corner right here and you look straight down the fence line this way, so the pond is up here to your right and plants, then you see that's what, and I guess you stand this way, you can see all the fence line there and the fence line there right at that corner. And shows, so the east corner looking left is the back perimeter fence property line. Then we go to the east side looking at back the western way. So we took our walk and we walked up here a ways, and actually we're right about here, right here at this tree, and then we're looking back down this way to see what it is that you see. This also shows the different bamboo clusters that I've planted here along the lines.
And what number is that?
31.
31?
I wanted to show that if you step in closer, so this isn't like necessarily, this isn't looking at the property from another one, but this is, so right here, this perimeter fence has a corner where it meets on the fence that's on the other side of the pond here. This is that corner. We've planted a Grandhusia tree right here at the corner. There was a large, and I'm sorry, I don't know what species of tree it was. It's there, that's been there forever, and it, died, it came down. So I understand that that tree probably was, provided some foliage to that, so that's why we went with this big species there and put it. It's a 7-8 foot already established one. Not, putting in just like saplings, trying to put something there that is, already has some growth, and it's a fast growing tree, and it doesn't, one of my things with the different plants is making sure to not have anything that would be infected like by the borer beetle or, that we have to have bagworms and things like that to be treating. We don't use pesticides and pesticides and stuff like that there. So to keep everything safe. That one's 32. This is 33. This would be if I was standing right about here. And so the pond is actually right here in the way. That is the neighbor's house from the street way off in the distance up there, or back there. But it shows the maple tree that's been planted and some of the bamboo that's down here. It's 33. And again, when you look at them, it does say, like the backyard east side looking back to help that, so you're not going back, and try to keep them in a order, so like I said, feel like you're taking a walk around. I had mentioned before that the screening that I had put up with the first CUP, it was bamboo screening. It wasn't live, but it goes around. The bamboo screening is actually, this is around like the area 1 there. You can see kind of like the tan from whenever this picture was, that it's up. It goes around there, and then on the inside of the perimeter fence, some of the enclosures that's there. Goats like to eat everything. This one was one that we've got on the outside there where the goats are not primarily, but this is if Mr. Reese is standing over his property and looking over there, that's going to be his, fence that he sees. There's no enclosures there. It's 34. Change colors on you. This is also then Mr. Reese's side of the property. Again, from the inner, it's all, there's trees all the way across there. Not seeing anything. You've got inner east looking north, and then looking south is next. So looking forward and then looking backward right there to show that whole fence line. 35 and 36. I went on the outside of my property here over on so we've gone here and down and around. So I went over here on this side. There is this grove of trees here, not to mention the trees that are along this fence line also. So I went to find like an opening, a hole that you could find, in the trees somewhere there. And so this is a hole in the fence line of the west side looking at my property. When I say hole, I mean a hole in trees, not a hole in the fence. But that's you like getting up real close, getting underneath the trees, peeking, and then that's what you're seeing there as far as that outer perimeter fence with the shade cloth there on it. These get Kinko's print, some big, some little, some pictures there. So do you want me to go?
Are they the same as?
These are not.
Okay.
These are actually from outside of the property line, from the streets looking at. So this is actually on Windsor Road. So
Go ahead and mark that.
okay, it's 38. Can you zoom out a little bit to the street views there, Kip and all, so I can show where this one's actually taken from? Zoom out so you can get me to Windsor and Oakland. Okay, so you come in, turn into the neighborhood here, you've got Windsor, you've got Oakland, you've got Hauser with that I'm on. So this picture right here is taken on Windsor, it's a Windsor Road view from the street looking at the back property. So this is actually, I believe Mr. Ayers' property, I think it's like garden or something that it would be, so it's somewhere right in here that's looking across, that's what you see of the property of mine. Keep going in the same direction, I don't want to go backwards. This again then is...
If you would mark that first.
Yes, that one's 38.
Okay.
Yep. This one's 39. It's just then a couple feet more over there at the other end of the property again to see what you can see in mine. The green little fence right there that I see is I put kind of like huge tomato cages around the new plantings and stuff like that to keep them safe. And that's one of that it's just garden fence that's there to make sure that the goats don't eat it for lunch. This one here is a Windsor Road view from the back east corner of the property. So if you're standing here at the corner here at Windsor and then looking back between or whatever to see what you can see, you can't see the property from there. I don't think that's been an issue as far as the other roads, but asking just the main road that it is, but I went ahead and did the whole walk around. Again, Windsor view. This one would be 41. The west side back neighbor corner view. So from my neighbor's property here or whatever with permission, at the back corner of these people's property here, this is the view that they would see from standing there. There is this little bitty triangle there that you can see. I have a gazebo that comes off the back of the house, that comes off the deck that goes to the pool. That's what that is. It's not an enclosure of any kind. It was there before I bought the house. Then, and I'm sorry, this one should be right here. It's this far in from this side of Windsor, so I was trying not to go backwards, but so we just did that one that's right there. This one here is 43, and it's from this corner looking at the back from the far end property from the street to see. I can't even really show you exactly what is mine because you don't really see it. This one here is my neighbors right here, Brad and Lori. They have a septic pond also that's right here. This is on the back side of their property here, looking at that, so it would be what this neighbor, what these neighbors here could see if they were standing at the back of theirs from it. Again, the gazebo roof does come up and peek out of some of the trees. That's 44. When you turn, if you pull into the neighborhood instead of going straight on Windsor, and if you turn to Oakland to go towards the house, I mean, there's these properties that are all here in front of it. Just from Oakland, from the road, you can't see anything of mine from it. It's not visible, that would be 45. So we're driving down the street, coming home here, we take a right on Hauser, and before we get to this property here, just looking from the road, the house that's pictured right here is actually the neighbors, Brad and Lori's house that's directly next to mine. So you see it, and then you can see from just the tree line there that's between us that beyond, you can't even see, my house there at the front. And then this is just getting a little bit closer right there standing. The cul-de-sac pictures that we had at the beginning that were bigger show standing from Least and Reese's front drives. This one would be standing right out front of Brad's drive. This is 47. Those are the pictures that I have that talk about that show you what is there and where. So then it would be this one. Anything that's labeled tree or maple tree, grand fuchsia, bamboo and stuff, that's just showing you that that's a new addition or whatever of landscaping. I didn't label the existing stuff.
This time I'd offer exhibits 22 through 47.
I'll just check, make sure they're all accurate. We'll go, yeah.
By the way, we've been going for over 2.5 hours now, and I realize there are citizens who would like to comment. Can you give us an idea of what sort of time you would like? Obviously, it would be just an estimate.
I'd say about an hour.
Of testimony you've heard still?
No, about a half hour with Jennifer and
Then another half hour with other persons. It concerns me that we have citizens who are here to comment, and I want to make sure that I'm respectful of their time as well. And we are well into the lunch hour. We're going to go. Mr. Counselor, do you have any thoughts you'd like to express?
Do you want to break for lunch or not?
I'm fine. But it's obviously Commissioner's call.
You think another half hour with her and then?
We probably should maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was like,
And
Let's go off the record for just a second. Okay, so we're off the record.
we will stand at ease for 5 minutes and then come back. Thank you. We will come back into session. As we do that, I would like to remind anyone who comes up to give testimony that to make sure the green light is on their microphone, to identify themselves for the audio recordings that we have. We also have our live stream video going right now as well, and to make sure that they identify themselves, as I say, for the audio-only recordings that we have. With that, Mr. Ford, if you would like to continue.
Thank you. Jennifer, you had just a few more photos up there? I believe we left off with 47.
There you go. Is that better?
Is that what? Let's check with the clerk on that and make sure.
So number 48.
All right. 48, I'm not sure, this is a picture that Kip had gave when we talked about the different spot for landscaping to be adding to the property where spots would be. And the pictures show that there is, something, if in fact, actually extra more around in some of the spots that landscaping has been put in.
So who originated that photo?
Kip originated this photo. But
And that was for
And my photos will
purposes
show
of
that they-
suggesting landscaping? Okay,
areas for it, was it 48?
48.
That we're at, okay.
And have you added landscaping in all those places?
I have, and then some extra around some of it also, some extra other than just those places, or the places, bigger places with it. And those pictures are the numbers that we went through, and I said that a plant was labeled or something, that's ones that have been put in for this. The next pictures are just, the original CUP required, an EDW facility sign on there. I take responsibility and misunderstanding that as far as the sign to, not knowing what sign was provided or not. As soon as, that came up in conversation, then, Mr. Tapp told me I didn't need to worry about it yet at the time.
So number
but so I've got it.
49 is,
49 is, I've got 49, 50, 51, 49, 50, 51, 52 here are each one of the EDW signs, or the EDW signs out there on the property. Its picture shows where they are. I've now got 5 signs out there.
would you mark them 49, 50, and 51?
Mm-hmm. Take that away from me, because I'm not using it. Thank you. Keep reaching for it. Okay.
I would offer for number 48 through 52.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and forward those to the clerk so that they can be put with the others.
So is it your testimony that there is no visual blight in your property?
Yes.
And you believe you've met or exceeded the suggestions Mr. Jones made in terms of landscaping?
Yes.
If I were to drive on your cul-de-sac, other than the EDW sign, I would have no indication of what's in your backyard?
Correct.
And again, your property is not open to the public, is that
Correct.
correct? And you believe the landscaping that was suggested by Mr. Jones more than suffices as a buffer for the EDW facility in your property?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
I want to go through with you the conditions recommended by Mr. Jones.
Okay.
And
I don't have a most recent copy of that, so you'll have to just read them.
okay. So number 2, the CUP shall be based on a time frame of 1 year. You believe 1 year is insufficient, that you'd like to go back to what Mr. Jones originally requested of 10 years, but at least 5 years?
Correct. The first CUP is normally 5 years. That's what this one was. Then the renewal goes to 10. Yes, I think so. I mean, he can come and check if he wants to plan for in a year to then check specifically on stuff, whatnot, that's totally fine. But I think that it's fair to go with the 10 years he originally recommended.
This is a time-consuming and expensive proposition for everyone.
Right.
And you understand that Mr. Jones has the authority that if there's a substantial violation, he can revoke your CUP.
Yes.
And you're also still dependent on the USDA approving your annual license.
Correct.
Annual renewal.
Correct. If USDA doesn't approve, then I can't have the animals in exhibit anyway.
You've got signage. The code requires a single sign. Mr. Jones has recommended, 4 or 5 signs?
Yes, he's changed it from the one sign that's required in the land code through the EDW facility to one signs on each side of the property facing adjacent properties instead of the main road. I mean, I'm fine, obviously, I got the signs, and I've put them out there. I have seen,
The signs are up,
the signs are up, yep.
but you received feedback from your neighbors that they would prefer not to have that signage.
Right, there's feedback that a neighbor, as far as that goes, seeing the sign that they don't want to have to see it from their property.
So you would suggest that we go back to what the land code requires, a single sign, but
Right, but I mean, I'll keep them up, or I'm fine either way, I'm not arguing that one. But if that bothers somebody, then, and they feel to take it off, then I'll do whatever you want.
And then on condition number 11, it reads, animals 6 months old and younger do not count toward the animal unit count. You would ask that that be changed to 9 months?
Yes, Kip and I discussed that just to be on, it's kind of a safe buffer on that one. Sometimes I've got animals that are born with me that then I have for 6 months with, training and all of that stuff before they go. Know that they may even be set up with a zoo or, new home that they're going to, but they may not go to that. I don't want to be in violation on something based on that, so that's why we were just adding that as just a little buffer for safety.
And then in number 15, each spare and female EDW may have up to, it says 1 litter of young per calendar year. You would ask that that be changed to 2 litters?
I've asked that to be changed to, yes, at least 2. Like I said, if my lynx is in a rare occasion, have a back-to-back litter or something like that, that's very important to the species. It doesn't happen very often, but it's something that, as community conservationists, they're going to be very, excited about. It's very positive, and so I'm not gonna, I wouldn't lie about it or hide it, but I'd hate to lose the CUP then because somebody said, oh, she just broke the rule, that female had 2. I'm also not trying to add animals to it. Like, I have so many female hedgehogs that, I normally have 2 litters a year with each one of them. I'm not one that breeds back to back like others do, but if you take away them having the ability to it, then it's kind of like asking me to get 2 more so that I can have 2 more females that can have just 1 litter a year to meet what I do normally.
And you're okay with conditions 3 and 4, which basically say the CUP may be revoked at any time?
Yeah, that's
First, based on a validated public complaint. The number 4 would be based on conditions substantiated by county staff. You intend to comply with all the requirements and?
Yeah, it was like 3 is, that's a standard CUP one, I'm fine with that. 4, it's like I've got it all in place there and planted. It's fine, Kip to come out and see. I think that if something dies and it's frozen in December, that, I'm allowed to plant it then when the ground unthaws, but I'm pretty sure that that's a reasonable.
And if planning and zoning staff wants to come out twice a year, I mean, that's up to them.
I mean, technically, can't they come out any time of year if somebody makes a complaint or if they want to, and to look at properties, let alone for somebody with a permit? I'm fine with that.
And you believe you've already complied with 5, all junk and debris on property shall be removed, but if that condition remains in, you're fine with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
You've previously have submitted an emergency plan,
So I have, and I've got, updated one.
so
yes, that one's covered.
you'll be submitting an updated plan. We'll notify the Clay County Sheriff as we did the last time.
Yes,
You believe you've already met number 9, the screening, to provide for an uninterrupted obstruction of view along Hauser Street and adjacent properties.
right, and I'd like Kip to come, take a look to see that he agrees with that,
Okay.
at this point, and see if any suggestions of something that
Yeah,
if he
you've
reckons
hired a
more.
landscaper, so if Kip comes out and says, hey, I think we could use another tree here or something there.
Right, then he's the one doing it. The landscaper, not Kip.
You're willing to comply with all other provisions of the code and regulations.
Yes, that's a standard, of course.
You would ask that your chart with the animal units be adopted, the few changes from Kip's
Yeah,
chart.
if the animal units chart is the way the commission wants to go with it, I would like for my changes to be adopted. I feel that, my input on that is something, because I know what the animals are and all of that.
Mr. Ford, are you referring to the one that's been entered in already? I forgot what
Yes.
number that is, but we can figure it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You understand that your CUP is non-transferable,
Correct.
and you have a certificate of liability. Have you submitted that yet?
He has the renewal of that. It was submitted a couple months ago.
I don't have anything further.
Very well. Mr. Counselor, did you have anything you'd like to clarify?
Maybe just one item. Ms. Casperman, am I right in understanding that you have an LLC that's actually involved in these animals?
I have a business LLC, yes.
It's a JK
Animals
Animals?
LLC.
Is that the entity that's actually running this business?
Right, at JK Animals LLC, doing business as Exotics R Us.
Is that a Missouri LLC?
Yes,
Is it a for-profit LLC, a typical LLC?
yes, I'm not a
You're
non-for-profit.
not a non-for-profit? Okay, that's all I had.
Very well. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there anything from the commission?
No, thank you.
Very well. With that, we will go ahead and bring up those citizens who want to comment, Mr. Ford, unless you have someone else that you'd like to bring forward.
Most of them are the ones that raised their hand. Would Andy Least?
Well, let me go ahead and just have everybody line up, and I don't know
Oh,
if we
sure.
need to call and go through there, but yeah, just call up. Do we want to, Mr. Counselor, Mr. Ford, do we want to necessarily do all opposed and all in favor at once, or just let them come as ever they feel like lining up?
I would prefer, as part of my case, to have those in favor testify first.
Okay, and you have them listed so we can go from there.
Yes.
Very well. Yeah, thank you, Sandy. You anticipated me.
Andrea List, I go by Andy.
Would you raise your right hand? In this matter which you're about to testify, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you.
Would you state your name and address?
Andrea List, I go by Andy, and I live at 7814 Hauser Street, Kansas City, Missouri, 64167. My property is known as the Horse Ranch.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so you're right across, are you actually on the cul-de-sac then?
Yes. When my husband and I purchased the property, we actually purchased 3 lots. I believe it was 6, 7, and 8, to give us the total land, which is just over 19 acres.
Okay, and you're here to testify in support of the renewal of the CUP?
Yes.
And why do you believe it should be renewed?
One, I'm an animal lover, and I know that the exotic animals that Jen works so hard that are endangered are being fostered in a very nurturing environment and allowed to breed. They can't always breed in a large-scale animal facility, because there's too much disruption, and she provides them a very loving environment. I think that the education service that she provides, though it's not recognized as such, is invaluable to our community, because most of these kids just aren't given the opportunity to see some of these exotic animals or to understand how species that, such as the armadillo, that we see armadillos in southern Missouri all the time, but that it's a very different kind of armadillo. And that's an education that she gives, and gives them the ability to see them live and in person. I know that I have people that come out to my place and they're like, I've never touched a horse before. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me, having grown up around animals most of my life. My father grew up on a ranch, and I bottle-fed calves when I was little. The kids today just don't have the same opportunities, and I think it's an invaluable service that Jen and her helpers provide to our community with all of her educational pursuits that she does. And I mean, Squeak, her Conti, yeah, I mean, I think of him as a South American raccoon. He's an absolute joy. And she brought him over one time, and my husband, before he died, was outside in his wheelchair, and Squeak loved Jim and climbed on him. Jim was petting, I mean, and it was a thrill for Jim. And it's one of the best memories I have.
Would you consider Jen a good neighbor?
Very. She's been a support for me since I lost my husband a few months ago. She's helped me when I've had to put horses down. She understands that horses are prey animals and that you have to respect their space and everything. I don't worry about her. If I'm riding around in the neighborhood, she understands to wait, don't come running up to me, and get me dumped on the road, which has happened with other neighbors. So yes, I mean, she's an excellent neighbor. She's helped me catch my dogs when they got out. She's helped me catch horses when they get out, and it happens. I mean,
Do you have any concerns about your property values with this renewal of a CUP?
absolutely none. I actually own 2 properties in that neighborhood. Besides the horse ranch, I own 8015 Windsor, and it has actually increased in property value during the time that we've owned it. I've owned it. And it's now sold, and it literally sold by word of mouth. I didn't even have to get a real estate agent. The property is in such high demand out there. And I do have people, when they see me outside with the horses or something, ask me if I'm willing to sell my property now, which I'm not. But no, I don't think that there's any problem with property value out there. There's been 2 other properties that have sold in the last 2 years in the neighborhood.
Thank
And
you.
they sold quickly.
Thank you.
Any clarification?
Nothing.
Okay, thank you very much. Would the next person please come forward, Mr. Ford, if you have someone on your list?
Bill Reese.
My name is John William Reese, Jr.
Right hand. Do you, in this matter, which you're about to testify, and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you. First of all, I apologize. I was out in the field working.
Could you speak just a little closer to the mic?
I'm sorry.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
I was out in the field working before I came here, and I want to apologize for our look. You guys look so good. I should have dressed up. I'm sorry.
Bill, what's your address?
Could you make this a little bigger? A little bit more. There you go. Of course, you see Jennifer's. Right there's my house. There is nobody in this room that lives close.
Close to the mic, please.
There's nobody in this room, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
There's nobody in this room that lives closer to Jennifer than I do. I don't think there's anybody that's probably worked closer with the zoning commission than I have, because I built a mother-in-law's house in the back out of a garage that I had that was like 600 square feet. The zoning commission was great. But damn it, they go by the book, which I hope you guys do too. I have a $26,000 brand new septic system out here. The one I had before probably would have lasted 30 years, but unfortunately it didn't meet the new codes. So I had to buy a new one. But I appreciate how I was treated. I was treated very professionally, and they got all the facts and all the information. With that, the reason I bring that up, how many people here have actually been to Jennifer's compound? You know, I don't see anybody in here who's complaining about it or voting on it that's actually been there. That makes no sense to me. The job that you guys have is to gather information. There's nothing wrong with this place. I get to hear last time that we had this that there was all kinds of extra traffic. That's not true. I'm retired. I used to work in special education at Park Hill High School. You can check it out. I used to work with very needy kids and autism. And I know what it's like to have a difficult situation. I used to bring them to Jennifer's library seminars, and this is the first time they got to see exotic animals like this. They might not mind anything to you. It meant the world to them. You need people like that that are teaching it. The other thing about it is, I've got a wonderful neighbor named Ray, who is against this. And my dad was the last World War II B-17 gunner to have the wings when he passed on as NCO in commission when he died. So when I come before you, I believe in service, duty, and honor. There is no honor in somebody coming up and saying that there's an ecological problem with that place. There is no proof of it. Nothing's been sent into the state of Missouri. I know that you can do that. It doesn't cost anything because I've done it on my pond because I thought it was contaminated at one time. You guys have to deal in facts. You can't deal in hearsay. You can't deal that somebody went around with a petition last time and actually blackmailed people into signing it by saying, I'll tell them that you're burning out here and you can't do it. And even some people that signed it came back to Jennifer and told her, you know what? He told me, he said, well, at least I cost her money. What kind of person are you dealing with here that's complaining about this? You've already seen all the pictures. There's no problem with this place. I don't hear anything at night, and I sit on the back of my porch. And like I say, there's nobody closer to this than me. I have been over there. You know what happens when she goes up to feed the lynx, the biggest animal she has? And I used to canoe down in southern Missouri and northern Arkansas on the streams down there. I've seen bigger Missouri bobcats than I have seen the lynx that she has. They were coming up, rubbing her and purring. You know the difference between a big cat and a small cat? Small cat can purr. The biggest cat that can purr is a mountain lion. And she doesn't have one. I've done some facts on this. I had a person come up here last time and say, I called the ADA, and yes, she has record there. You know that the U.S. Department did not give her any animals? And then she shut up and she sat down with a big smirk on her face. And I'm thinking, well, you didn't finish the whole story. The USDA does not give animals to anybody. Jennifer just takes care of what needs to be taken care of. She deals with animals that people probably got that they shouldn't have, if she has room. She deals with animal sanctuaries that have animals that need to be fixed, and she fixes them. She has to be certified every year by the federal government. No offense to you guys, but they have people that know a little bit more about these exotic animals than we do, okay? And I don't mean that as an insult to you gentlemen. You guys are great. You do a fantastic job here in Clay County. And I thank you for your service, by the way. I'm a registered voter here in Clay County. My wife is a registered voter here in Clay County. My daughter is a registered voter here in Clay County. My son-in-law is a registered voter here in Clay County. Of course, my daughter and son-in-law is why I built a mother-in-law house, so I wouldn't do anything violent to them. But I'm totally for this being approved for Jennifer, because what she does is good. It's not bad. We talk about the increased amount of traffic that it has caused. It's not a retail outlet. She doesn't sell to individuals. She never has. This is for research and for training. I sat on the front porch with my 2 grandkids, because I've been retiring for the last 5 years, and I get to play with them, thank God. There's no extra traffic down there, believe you. With having a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old now, I would know if there was traffic out there, okay? Now, I don't agree with Ray, where he comes in and says about being against this, but I totally understand why he is. He doesn't like to see any animals in cages. Neither do I. But see, unlike Ray, he's never been over there, and I have. And I've seen why she does what she does. And I understand you have to have situations like that to save these beautiful animals. Because if we don't, they're going to be gone forever, and we need people like that to do that kind of thing. God bless her. She's a saint. And if any of the people that have complained about her would just take the time and you talk to them, ask them if they've ever went over to her place and talked to her. She's very easy to talk to. She doesn't hold any grudges. She would definitely show the people what she's got. And she only does that just for certain people. She has to know you. And believe me, the people that have tried to make life hard for her, she knows. And she would let them come over to show them, so they would know that there's nothing to worry about. This is a wonderful thing that she does. For God's sakes, please don't take this away from Clay County. You guys have a very important thing to do. And I'm very proud to say that I live in Clay County. And after doing some digging with a septic tank, I know why they call it Clay County. Anyway, I hope I didn't go over my 5 minutes. You gentlemen and ladies have been wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Anything further, Mr. Ford?
Not from this witness.
Do you have any clarifications? Okay, very well. Do you have another person to come forward?
Rick Oxen,
Close.
you need to be sworn in first, Rick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi. Rick Oxshire.
In this manner in which you're about to testify, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do. My name is Rick Oxshire. I have been on the property many times. At no time have I ever felt in danger, if anything. In fact, to even get to the animals would take quite some effort, even if you're invited and you're on the property with Jen. There is no runoff of the property of animal feces or any such thing. I've walked the entire...
Excuse me, just, I think there may be some, yeah, just a little bit more into
I'm
the mic
sorry.
would be great. Thank you.
I've walked the property many times. There is no runoff or feces issues going from her property to surrounding properties. I've been around the animals numerous times. I've helped with some of the education endeavors. In fact, I've even had the lynx sitting on my lap. So he's a bit of an overgrown house cat, to be honest with you. He was hand raised, so he's very used to people. So that's pretty much my point. I think that you know, if if this was given the first time and the criteria is still being met, the second would be good. I also agree that 1 year is a very short amount of time for the amount of financial and work investment it takes to run such an endeavor. Any questions?
Mr. Ford, do you have any follow-up?
All right.
Counselor, any,
No, thank you.
very well. Thank you very much. The next person, please.
Rachel Love.
Rachel Love.
And as a matter in which you're about to testify, do you swear to tell the whole truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So help you God.
Yes.
Rachel, where do you live?
I live in Kansas City. I live at 2620 Northeast 45th Street.
What is your connection to the exotic animals?
I volunteer a lot of time with Jen and her program. I'm also an educator within the North Kansas City School District. Been with them for over 10 years and work heavily with many of her education programs. Almost everything in my science curriculum through the entire year, I make connections to the animals in her programs. I've been allowed to bring them to class. I've been allowed to do building-wide programs, things like that. But even like light and sound unit, I tie to the animals that I can either bring in through video or even live for my students to see and make connections to. So sixth grade curriculum is very heavy in ecology, but like I said, we do make connections even outside the ecology and human impact as well. So the animals that I can tie to give them, my students, that connection, and for them to be able to see that makes it a very concrete concept for them. It also opens the doors to a lot of additional questions, investigations, and I've actually had some students working with the Sage Center, and at one point she had a goat, a small goat, that had some, had to have a leg amputated, and we were working with them to design and build some prosthetics for the goat. So we're always looking for additional educational connections to the animals and ties to the kids. So a lot of the things that were talked about at the program, you know, just the species and keeping that education and making connections to the animals that are related to the ones that are native here, to any exotic that is non-native to the state of Missouri is vital.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Thank you, no.
Very well.
Kelly White.
Kelly White.
Raise your right hand. In this matter in which you're about to testify, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly, state your name and address.
Kelly White, 4411 North Drury Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri.
And what is your connection with the exotic animals?
I'm a volunteer. I volunteer 3 days a week. I have also been part of her educational programs too. I do sometimes help do those as well.
And how long have you been doing this?
I've been helping Jen and going out to her facility for over 5 years.
Okay, so you're very familiar with the
I'm
animals?
extremely familiar, yes.
Okay. Any of the animals that you consider dangerous?
No. No, my chores or, you know, the stuff that I mainly do, I feed them. I go in and I clean up the feces myself. I dispose of it. I get in with all of them. I feel comfortable with all of them. I feel like that what she is doing is extremely important for the preservation of species. There's so many things that we're losing, you know, with all the Brazilian rainforest, Australia, all the fires. There's so many things kids are losing opportunities to even know that existed, you know, and I just feel like preservation of species and education is the only way that we're going to be able to save any of these animals. And And I think that she is, you know, detrimental to that. People like her and doing these kinds of programs and getting the knowledge out there, just like they were saying, you know, Rachel was saying about kids, you know, some kids might not even know that there's more than one kind of armadillo, or what a serval is, or what a swift fox is. I mean, it might not seem important, but here in the very near future, you may only be able to see animals at a zoo or read about them in books if we do not step forward and make great steps in preserving the species. So I just feel like that it is very important to allow her to keep doing and educating the next generation so that they know what needs to be done so that we can keep, you know, these animals alive.
And in your experience, are the animals well cared for?
Extremely well cared for. Extremely well cared for. I mean, we have certain protocols. I have, just like we had talked, there's 3 or 4 gates I go through to even get to an animal. We feed them daily. We change their water daily. We give them enrichment daily. You know, they have heated houses in the winter. They have heated bowls in the winter. You know, we have sprinkler systems in the summer. This is her life. These are her babies. You know, she doesn't have any children of her own. And I don't think that there's anybody that cares for their animals any better than she does.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything? Very well, thank you very much.
Regina Montoya.
Just state your name, please.
Regina Montoya.
Raise your right hand. In this matter which you're about to testify, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Regina, what is your connection with the exotic animals?
I hired Jen Casterman for a birthday party for my daughter. She was around 7 at the time.
So they exhibited at your, where did you have the party at?
It was actually in a church.
Okay. And how recent?
That was probably about 5 years ago.
Okay. And have you assisted Jennifer?
Have I assisted her?
Have you assisted her?
I've been on her property several times. I don't go into the cages with the animals. I don't have the training, but I am there and have spent time with her animals.
And when the animals were exhibited at your birthday party at the church, how would you describe that experience?
It was good. There's a lot of photos of her on her website, and I think one was submitted with the ringtail. We had a group of about 20 kids, all elementary school age, and so they were able to sit in a circle, and she would bring the animal out, and if the animal was feeling up to it, then 1 or 2 kids would be able to kind of interact with that animal. So they got some up-close attention. I've also been to at least 4 of her library shows.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Anything else? Nothing further? Thank you.
Gwen Thurn?
I'm sorry?
No.
No.
Next, Gwen Thurn? Oh, you didn't want to testify? Okay. Okay. Well, if you could just say that.
Gwen Thurn. Raise your right hand. In this matter which you're about to testify, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Gwen, I understand you did not plan on testifying.
No, I came as a support, but I didn't know this was going to be part of it.
Okay.
But
But you are in support of the
Yes.
renewal of the CUP?
I think what she does is very important, and she does a good job. And, you know, like they've said, the animals are very well taken care of, and she's very respectful of the animals' rights and everybody around her. So
Okay.
I would think approving it would be a very good thing for,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anything further?
Have I missed anyone? that concludes my case.
Very well. Is there a citizen present who would care to comment further, either in favor or in opposition, or for informational purposes only? Please come forward.
Greg Ayers.
In this matter in which you're about to testify, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do. I don't think there's anything.
Go ahead and identify yourself, just independent of the
Greg Ayers. I live at 8006 Windsor Drive, Kansas City, Missouri. My property backs up to Jennifer's.
Thank you.
I think in the testimony, they've lost sight of why we're here. We're not arguing that she hasn't done a good job of taking care of the animals or anything like that. What is the issue is this facility should not be in a residential area. It's totally people living there with families, and as she pointed out, she's wanting to be able to raise 2 litters of animals on some species, which means she's in a business of breeding animals. And this is a residential area, not a business area. So I think those are the points that I want to add to the letter I've already sent that express the points that I think why she should not be renewed. With these dangerous exotic wild animal signs, now everybody is going to have to disclose on a sales agreement that this facility exists, which is a detriment to our property values. I think the lady that said she was owned a horse farm said her property has increased in value. Well, she sold that in December of 2018, so she has no idea what the property values have done since Jennifer's put up those signs.
We need to go ahead and let the gentleman finish, and then we will come back. But I didn't allow interruptions for any other witnesses, so please, sir, continue.
I just had a real estate agent check the sale date on the property, and that's what information I was given. So I am not against her business or anything like that, but I'm against her business being in a residential area. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Does any other citizen wish to come forward to comment on this matter? I'll ask one more time. Are there any citizens who would like to come forward and testify on this matter? The thing is, if Mr. Councilman, I don't really get into a debate that seems to be a dispute between neighbors here. I'm a little reluctant. What is your...
It's a point of fact about the
sale of...
Maybe very quickly to address the factual issue.
But please, you're still under oath. Re-identify yourself for the recordings, and please be brief.
My name's Andy List. In regards to the property at 8015, it was sold in December of 2018. However, in that time, the people that are trying to buy it have been unable to secure a mortgage. So we have been carrying the property, and once it gets, he is able to get a mortgage, we will go through a reappraisal. And he's already had a courtesy one done by a friend of his, and the property value has continued to increase. So I just wanted to correct that.
I'm sorry, did you have any observations? Okay, we all good? I'll ask one more time. Are there any citizens who would care to comment further on this matter? Seeing none, that concludes our hearing on 2021-142. I will say that, just so everybody knows, we will be hearing this again according to our ordinance. We hear testimony, of course, in a working session. There will be another hearing that will be in a business session where we will once again be available to hear this. We are prohibited from voting on these items on the same day that we hear them, so that there is the opportunity for contemplation, so we can look it over. We've had a lot of information come to us. Our next business session is this coming Wednesday. I do not believe that that gives us enough time to really digest the information that we had, so we will, of course, be notifying all the parties when the next meeting will take place. Does that sound?
If I may jump in a little bit on, just on process. So I think we will come back in the commission. Obviously, there's a lot of information to digest. So certainly the commission wouldn't be voting today. Certainly would request the commission review that. I think for purposes of the record, I think Mr. Ford and I are in agreement that the best course would be to close the record today as far as evidence. And from my perspective, I think I'm showing, Ed, tell me if you're wrong, I think the record consists of the staff report and 52 exhibits, most of which are photographs. That's what I've got. But I don't think we would be inclined to reopen the record and take more testimony absent really extraordinary circumstances for some reason. But I think that's probably the simplest way to do it, to make sure that the record is as clear as possible.
I agree with Mr. Graham. I know he also includes the public testimony today as part of the record.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm talking about, yeah, the documentary record, and plus all the testimony offered today.
Very well, I believe I have the consensus of Commissioner Carpenter on that, so that's the way we will proceed.
Okay.
Any further comments before we leave the subject?
Do we have a date?
No. There's a potential date, but I want to make sure that our business sessions are every 2 weeks. So it would probably be 2 weeks from the 23rd, but we have a 4th of July holiday intervening, so that may well skew that. That's why I didn't give you a specific date, because I wanted to make sure we had that through staff first.
Thank you.
That brings us to comments on non-agenda items. Are there any members of the public who would care to comment on a non-agenda item? Seeing none. Are there any office holders who would like to comment today on an item not on today's agenda? Seeing none. Are there any agencies that would like to comment on non-agenda items at this time? Seeing none. Mr. Administrator, do you have any comments on anything?
None.
Thank you. Commissioner Carpenter, do you have any commission comments?
I do not. Thank you.
I also do not. There are no minutes to be approved of previous sessions on this agenda. Are there any written reports to be submitted? There are none. Executive sessions, there are none. That brings us to adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you.